tail end at 50.
All right, here we are. So your speaker's on, all right.
Oh, sorry.
Good afternoon. This is a hearing of the Chatham Conservation Commission being held on January 11th, 2023, in accordance with the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Town of Chatham Wetlands Protection Bylaw and Regulations. My name is Bob Rawls, and I serve as the chair. Today's hearing is being broadcast live on Channel 18 and is being recorded for the on-demand archives available on the town's website. It is being conducted in person, by phone, and by video conference. The agenda, instructions on how to attend, and copies of documents for review are posted on the town's website. I do want to pause here for a moment. There apparently was a typo for the access instructions if you were calling in by phone. So it would be the same number, and I think this is also being displayed on the screen. Same call-in number, 508-945-4410, but the passcode or the password, or whatever you want to call it, is the 314-203-653. Pound sign. I don't call it myself, so I'm hoping that I don't know whether the pound sign is okay. Pound sign's required. Okay, I think it's also being displayed. So back to our. To all participants, whether attending by phone or online, please remain muted unless you've been recognized by the chair. When recognized, please identify yourself for the record. If you are attending by phone, you can mute and unmute by using *6. If you're online and you're not a commissioner, please keep your camera turned off unless you've been recognized. Indicate that you wish to speak by using the raise hand feature. So that we have a record of a quorum, I'll now ask each commissioner to indicate their presence. Vice Chair Bob Delvecchio.
Present.
Janet Williams.
Present.
Karen Latin.
Present.
Mary Sullivan, I believe, is not here today. Elise Gordon.
Present.
Cheryl Meservey.
Present.
And I'm here, so we do have a quorum. Today, Paul Whiteman is filling in for Nikki Smith, the Chatham's conservation agent. And so Paul will be, you look cold, Paul. You look cold. Paul is going to lead us through the agenda if you are in position to do that.
First on the agenda is 32 and 34 Old Salt Works.
Get your microphone turned on. That knock signifies that your microphone's off.
There we go, sorry. It's been a while since I've been down.
Yeah, you'll.
But I'll pick it up.
Yep.
Okay, first on the agenda is 32 and 34 Old Salt Works Road, James and Jennifer Mock, map 13L, parcel 1-C32 and 1C-31. The DEP SE number is 103593. The work proposed a coastal stairway replacement and bunker repairs. And this is, I believe, is for a review of an order.
It is an order, yes. I forget who represents.
Sean.
Is it? Oh, Sean. There he is. Hi, Sean. Have you seen it? Have you seen the draft OOC?
I have. It was very well written. I didn't see any
Thank
issues.
you.
Told you.
And you didn't even know it was me. So. Oh, very good. So, comments, questions from the commissioners then?
Quick point on the listing of the supporting documents. There's a note in red to be resubmitted with the address of the subject property. Has that, it looks like it's been done. Can that be taken out now?
It has been done?
Well, located at 32 and 34 Old Salt Works Road.
Was that on the architectural sketch plan? If it hasn't been done, we'll submit that for the record.
Okay.
I believe it was on the architectural sketch that was provided.
I believe that's correct.
Oh, right, it was there. That's not on, but not here. So this note here, the correct address
Just to
is
rectify
listed.
that.
Okay,
Yeah.
I see what you're talking. And the only other thing I added was a finding. After the finding on the existing stairs to the coastal beach, I changed are in disrepair and need to be replaced. rather than repaired, because it's a new one going in. And so that led me to another one. The proposed new stairs are to be built in the same footprint as the existing. So
Yeah,
just to clarify, and that's all I had.
okay.
I got a couple of
Okay,
things.
Bob?
For the special conditions, there are a bunch of trees adjacent to the pillbox, and I was, like to add that no trees will be removed adjacent to the pillbox.
Right, sounds good. Yeah.
And I just have one more special condition. I wanted to ask about the stair treads, whether there's going to be any light penetrating through. There are 2 treads per step, and I'm wondering,
Yeah, I believe there's a 3/4 inch gap between the treads.
okay. And I was going to add a special condition that requires any disturbance next to the stairway replacement to be planted with beach grass after the new stairs are installed.
That's acceptable.
Okay.
That's all I had, thank you.
Good, thanks, Bob. Anyone else? Okay. Then we can put this one to bed. With a motion.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the order of conditions for 32 and 34 Old Salt Works Road with the changes mentioned.
Latin second.
Roll call vote. Bob?
Aye.
Janet?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
Elise?
Aye.
Cheryl? And I vote aye. Thanks very much.
Thank you. See you in a little bit.
All right, next item is,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next on the agenda is 127 Stage Harbor Road, Anthony and Susan Probst, I don't know how to pronounce that, Grimm, map 14D, parcel 14B, SE 103595. The work is removal of an existing dwelling and construction of a new dwelling, including removal, replacement of existing hardscape, replacement of existing lawn with native mitigation plantings.
Good afternoon. Russ Holden from Ryder and Wilcox. And all I'm going to say is that submitted was a revised plan, site plan, and on the revisions, it was a reduction in the footprint of the dwelling, of the proposed dwelling by 78 square feet, and also the portion of the driveway which is going to be rebuilt is going to become a shell drive as opposed to paved.
very good, yes, thank you for that. I think that's an improvement. Yep. I don't recall, I see that Teresa's there as well. Was the tree protection plan there before, or am I just not remembering it?
No, I think that was recently submitted with the revised plan from
Okay.
Teresa.
All right,
Correct.
yeah, so,
And unfortunately, I didn't make a copy of that, but
that's all right, we
you
have.
should have.
It's-
Yeah, we have it.
It's in our stuff.
you should have a
We
copy
have it,
of that.
yeah. All right, anybody have,
I'm just curious, Russ, I was looking to see where the shrinkage in the footprint of the house
When
happens.
you look at the plan, you see where the areaway is on the north side of the house and the bay window or the angled portion.
Oh, the cutoff there, yep.
It extended towards Stage Harbor about 3 more feet originally. So they took 3 feet off of that and reduced that wall. So the north face wall was reduced by about 3 feet.
What's an areaway, by the way?
The barrier way?
Areaway.
Yeah, areaway, it's just probably a concrete foundation, 8-inch wall that's going to have windows. So there'll be windows down there for either egress or for letting light into the basement.
Okay.
Well, I don't see any hands up right now.
Are there any, all right.
You want to ask about that? I mean, last time, Jen was asking, last time there were butters, and they made some requests that, I think what we concluded there was that maybe the scope of what they're asking for is not ours.
Most of it was zoning related.
Right. So
Yes.
I assume that you're going to,
That-
have you been to zoning?
I'm not sure. I have submitted plans to Bill Riley to take the zoning, and I assumed it was going to be yesterday or the day before there was last
Okay.
week there was a zoning meeting, but I didn't see it called out.
Okay,
I'm
so
not sure.
my recollection is that their concerns are about the driveway. And-
Yes.
So if there are changes there, it wouldn't affect too much of what we are dealing with here
No,
today.
some of the suggestions, for instance, he suggested moving the garage to the south of the building, which wouldn't be very practical. And then moving the whole dwelling to the south, and in so doing, purchasing or doing a land swap so that it would conform to setback regulations. And again, that's something that's a little bit extreme, but should be discussed, I guess.
Okay, well, actually, we have a hand up, I'm assuming, from an abutter. So go ahead and, Mr. Preston, you want to? Can't see
Yes,
that.
can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon. My name is David Preston. I'm at a butter at 117 Stage Harbor Road, where I've been for almost 40 years. The properties at 115, 117, 125, and 127 are really a neighborhood, and it is worthwhile looking at projects on individual properties from a neighborhood perspective. We are a neighborhood because of a number of inescapable characteristics. The first is closeness. The four properties are on what is a relatively small piece of land, if any of you have been there. 115 and 127, for example, are less than 30 feet apart, with a roadway in between. The second characteristic has to do with the linden trees. Each property has one, and they give the community a special look that we all value. We at 115 and 117 have yearly care routines to keep them healthy and looking attractive. A couple of years ago, we spent 18 grand ensuring that the big one beside the right-of-way on the property would survive. The third item that links us together is the right-of-way. That is the only way that three of the abutters can access the property or walk to the beach. The property at 127, in addition to the use of the right-of-way, has access to the Stage Harbor Road by its own driveway and to the beach at present via the pathway under the arbor. With that background, let me get to my question. I think you see that we are neighbors, not really by choice, but also by necessity. With the 127 Stage Harbor project, the new house is situated about 4 feet to the south of the old one. And as abutters at 115 and 117, we do appreciate that very much. Given the space to the south on the 127 Stage Harbor property, with moving the house a few feet more to the south, be something in terms of protecting the root system of the trees. It also would add to the privacy of the property of 115 and even to the property at 127 vis-a-vis the right-of-way. That is my question. Thank you.
thank you, Mr. Preston. I don't know if you want to say anything about that. I will, though, just let me insert that, again, this strikes me, these strike me as mostly questions, except where it affects the tree outside the scope of what we can deal with here. But go ahead.
Well, all I can say regarding moving the house to the south, right now, the proposed dwelling is 17.5 feet to the property line. The setback requirement's 15 feet. So we could move the house 2 feet would be maximum. And then there was some suggestion about doing a land swap, but that turns into something more substantial. So in answer to your moving it southerly, it would be about a 2-foot movement that we could get.
Okay.
Is there not a lot of room to the south?
No, there is not. Well, there's the jog in the property line, and where the house is situated, it's at the closest point of that jog. So as I say, it's presently 17.5 feet to the property line.
Yeah, the question I'm asking though is would moving the house slightly be beneficial for the root system, given the significance of the trees on the property?
I
Is
see
the
that,
answer yes or no?
I see that Teresa Sprague is raising her hand in response to that question, so go ahead, Teresa.
Thank you. Through the chair, Teresa Sprague with Blue Flax Design. We did submit an extensive tree protection plan along with the updated planting plan, which shows the permeable driveway. I just want to reiterate what I stated at the first hearing. Our first direction from the property owners was to protect that linden tree and the English elm trees that are located along Stage Harbor Road. We all recognize the significance of these trees and the importance of the character of the neighborhood and that these trees support. With that, we've submitted an extensive management plan to protect that linden tree, both short-term during construction and long-term. And I know that the property owners are committed to that plan. In addition, moving that north wall 3 feet further to the south obviously helps us better protect that linden tree. The existing structure is virtually right up against that tree with existing brick patio over that root system. As part of our tree protection plan, which was created by a certified arborist, we're proposing to leave that brick patio in place while the construction begins, and then to hand remove that existing brick patio after, and then support the health of that tree through protective pruning, through monitoring, through irrigation, et cetera. So that tree protection plan is available, and we'd be happy to share that with any of the abutters.
And I believe it is on MyTownGov.
Yes, it is as well.
It should be, so anyone can download it and take a look at it.
Yes.
Okay.
Follow-up. Just a quick follow-up, Teresa. So the tree protection plan for the linden has the fence zone based on the DBH, but the protection zone area is within the footprint of the house and the patio. How does the construction within that protection zone work to protect the tree? And would moving it
It's really-
south 2 feet make a difference?
I mean, obviously, if we can, as far as we can get any construction from the existing tree, this is really about deconstruction of the existing house to protect the tree. Obviously, we want to protect it through construction of the proposed house, but because that existing house, that patio, you can see from the image that's on the screen right now, that patio is literally right on top of the trunk. The house is right up against, so it's really going to be about taking particular care as the house is deconstructed, and then keeping that patio in place to help protect the root systems through that deconstruction and reconstruction process, and then removing that patio last. We've provided 3 different options for protecting the tree during construction, and obviously we would want to consult with the contractor to use the method that's going to best protect the tree with the methodology for deconstruction. So we're hoping that this tree protection plan will become part of the order of conditions, and that we'll have an opportunity to work directly with the contractor to make sure that that tree is protected. In addition to that, we've provided some pre-construction guidelines, some construction guidelines, and post-construction guidelines for protecting the tree.
Thank you.
So as I've read your tree protection plan, the idea is that you would have someone there, yourself or representative, often during the deconstruction and construction,
Exactly, through the entire process, from pre-construction through post-construction.
Right.
Yes.
So, Mr. Preston, do you have other comments, questions? I will assume no. Okay. Other questions from anyone? I mean, this is certainly one of the more detailed tree protection plans.
Yes, I did have one final.
Okay, go ahead.
I did have a first.
All right.
It had to do with the arbor and the path under the arbor. The arbor, while not always in great condition, is somewhat attractive. And as you look at the property as a whole, it is very consistent with Chatham streetscape. The loss of the path also puts more pressure on the right-of-way for beach access. Why does the arbor have to go as opposed to remaining and being a nice and attractive piece of our Chatham heritage? Retaining the path keeps the families who rent the property frequently at 127 off the right-of-way, where they sometimes get into trouble with traffic.
So again, I can answer that. The existing path is to be maintained. The arbor is in poor condition, as you pointed out, and so that's why we're proposing to remove it. The property owners are trying to minimize the amount of maintenance that's required on the site, so they did not ask us to put an arbor back. Certainly that's something we could discuss with them, but we're simply proposing to remove that arbor because it's in very poor condition. It can't be maintained. It would have to be, a new arbor would have to be constructed. And the homeowners were simply in consideration of that and whether to put an arbor back. They were just thinking about the maintenance that's required to take care of it, make sure it doesn't get into the condition that the existing arbor is in, but that path is being maintained. So it will just be a grass path that will lead them out to Stage Harbor Road and then across to the beach.
Thank you. Thank you.
But the common path, is that a publicly accessible path, or it's not meant to be a publicly accessed path, is it?
Oh, it's for the people in 127.
Okay,
But the renters, for example, frequently don't see it, and their families are going up and down that road. And there is often as many as 12 cars up and down that road in the course of a normal weekend. So.
the path on the other side of the road is maintained, or will be maintained.
Well, I did not know that, so thank you for that.
That's outside the scope of, this drawing right here, but. All right, anything else from anybody here?
I got a question, Teresa. On the north side of the property along the right-of-way, one of the neighbors at the last hearing was concerned about privacy and some kind of a screening. Is that planting that you've designed enough for that purpose?
So we're proposing Northwind switchgrass, which is a cultivar of switchgrass, but it's quite a large cultivar, to provide a screen along that property line. We were looking for something a little softer than shrubs. However, if the property owners, it's certainly something that we can discuss, and we could change out that Northwind switchgrass to create a hedge of viburnum, for instance. The property owners liked the idea of keeping a somewhat soft buffer, yet maintaining screening. The idea of the way the grasses look in the wind, and in keeping with their goals of really maintaining the curb appeal and the aesthetics of the property from this really heavily traveled, roadway foot traffic as well as automobile traffic. But certainly that is something that they would be willing to discuss, and we could change out. And I suspect changing that from switchgrass to viburnum is something we could do as even a simple field change with the agent.
Okay, maybe a mixture of both, maybe?
Yeah, we are proposing one service berry in the area just to also provide a little bit of height and vertical structure outside of the drip line of the linden tree. So just to create a little bit of vertical layering from the linden tree to an understory tree, then down to the switchgrass.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Anyone else? Okay, it sounds like not. So, it sounds to me like we don't have any significant issues with the plan as proposed. You still have to go to the zoning. It sounds like you still may have a conversation with the abutters for some
Which will be
change.
handled through zoning, probably.
Right, right. So,
Do they have to come back if the house is moved 2 feet?
I don't know. I mean, how would that, if you did move the house some small distance, I guess, up to 2 feet, it strikes me that the overall mitigation plan wouldn't change much.
No. You
And-
decrease 0 to 50 by a small amount, but the mitigation being proposed remains the same, so
Right.
it's,
So any changes therein could be
Insignificant.
reflected to us in just an updated
yes.
planting plan, I guess, site plan. It wouldn't necessarily affect what we would then write an order for.
And one of the issues, not only due to the setback, but one of the issues about moving the house to the south is you have an existing driveway that in that area closest to the house will probably maintain pretty much the same configuration that's there, because across the other side of the driveway is a retaining wall that's going to remain. So we can't narrow the driveway necessarily. So chances of it moving,
Or somewhat small in your view?
yes,
Yeah,
I would
okay.
think.
Just through the constraints. Okay. So, I would, is there any reason, anybody have a reason for us not to send this to an order as proposed? All right. And so, we have, Nikki not being here, we have to sort of make sure we're not, we have a lot of things currently scheduled for the next work session.
9.
I counted, I got an update from Crystal, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yes, good. So that's one more. What is your urgency?
Teresa is, I'm not sure, from my standpoint, I'm comfortable, but I'm not sure whether the pros or Grimes would like to. What is the time restraint?
I'm not sure if there's a time constraint on this. I would have to reach out to the property owners to double check on that. I think they're under the assumption that this would get moved to the January 25th work session. I guess the other person I would like to speak to is Bill Riley, since he's handling the zoning filing, to see if there's any reason that pushing this off would have any impact on that. I just don't know the answer.
All right.
What's the next date?
Well, the next work session would be,
February 22nd.
Oh,
we'll have those once a month.
yeah.
So we can go ahead and schedule it, and then if for some reason you have to continue, just you would let us know. And of course, we would not object in the least if you continued it, because we're going to have a lot of orders to get ready. Fortunately, we have 2 weeks to do it because of our new schedule. Okay, so we can continue to the 25th, or go to the 25th work session for an order of conditions then.
I'll make a motion that we continue 127 Stage Harbor Road to the work session on January 25th, 2023 for an order of conditions.
Latin second.
Roll call vote, Bob.
Aye.
Janet.
Aye.
Karen.
Aye.
Elise.
Aye.
Cheryl.
Aye.
And I vote aye. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Certainly see you then. I do encourage you, though, to, work with the neighbors to make sure that as much as possible,
Oh, definitely.
everybody can be pleased.
Mr. Chairman, the next thing on the agenda is 25 Patriot Place, George and Jean Kaiser, map SE parcel 42-KM17. The DEP number is SE103600. The work is proposed construction of a retaining wall and associated native plantings with the installation of a dry well.
Good evening, Commission. This is Cameron Larson with ECR, representing the applicant, coming to you remotely. Thanks for that introduction. I'll keep this brief. We opened up this hearing last week for 25 Patriot Place. The proposed project involves a new retaining wall to the rear of the property. I can share my screen at this point to show you the revised plan.
That would be great.
All right, so that should be coming through.
We see it.
Okay, excellent. So there were a few small revisions we had made at the request of the commission, some housekeeping items. The title block now reflects notice of intent as opposed to RDA. We did add the proposed grade lines at the north side of the retaining wall. If you can see my cursor here, highlighting here. So the proposed grade, we're gonna tie that retaining wall into elevation 24. So again, the idea is just to have a flat area to immediately rear the home for the applicant property owner to access the rear easily. So that retaining wall will be at that 24-foot contour. And then on the bottom side of the wall, it kind of varies from 22 feet up to 23 and then down to 21. So at most, it's going to be 3 feet high. We did approximate the amount of fill that will be needed to bring that up to 24, which is noted here in the plan at 18 cubic yards. And I believe that sums up the revisions to the plan. I'm also going to pull up the planting plan. I had some issues sharing my screen last week, but this is the proposed planting plan. As we discussed last week, this planting plan expands on a previously approved planting plan for the property that was approved back in 2019 through an RDA. It hasn't been implemented at this point. The property owners was waiting to, finish all the work on this project. So what you're seeing here on the plan, that orange dash line shows the previously approved footprint of the planting area. Obviously, at this point, it conflicts with the proposed retaining wall. So we've shifted that planting area now to be immediately below the wall. And we've also added 100 square feet of additional planting area to that to account for the new retaining wall. We've included that table from the town's regulations on the plan for reference. We did discuss that last week, and we've updated that to accurately reflect the new numbers. So in total, it'll be 650 square feet of mitigation plantings. All the plantings are native. They're coming from the approved plant list. And then any exposed soils within that planting area will be stabilized with a native upland seed mix. I believe that covers the revisions and the updates we have for the commission today. And at this point, I'd be happy to address any questions, but we'll be seeking the commission's approval and the issuance of an order of conditions.
All right, thank you. Remind me again why the mitigation was proposed before. You said an RDA?
Yes, correct. There was a small addition and deck rebuild project that was approved under an RDA in 2019. So they had included some mitigation planting for that. Also with that RDA, they had done some tree work. This was at one of the properties that was damaged heavily by that tornado. So they were removing some trees in that area, and we were going in and filling things in a little bit with the new native plants.
Okay. So this mitigation covers both that project and this project?
Correct.
All right. Probably in retrospect, we should have not approved that via an RDA, but lessons learned. Okay, questions for anybody? Does not look like it. Okay, you got one, okay.
So you say there's 100 square feet additional. It looks to me like it's one bush and mostly grass. Is that correct?
Let me pull that up.
At least there's only one bush that's outside the orange dotted line.
All right, so that planting plan should be back up. So that entire green highlighted area is the proposed mitigation area. It's 650 square feet. And what you're seeing over here is the plant legend that indicates a mix of native shrubs and saplings. So
Right.
we have 6, 7, 8, 9 saplings and 9 shrubs, and then 7 bearberries to also go in as some to improve the herbaceous layer.
So beside the swamp tupelo that's outside on the south part, outside the orange dotted line, what else did you add besides grass to make it 100 square feet of mitigation?
We added 3 additional saplings and 3 additional shrubs from what was previously approved. This plan is just a depiction. The way the plants are laid out is kind of just in a random fashion on the plan. It doesn't reflect exactly, what was added in certain areas beyond that orange. But we did increase it by 3 shrubs and 3 saplings to account for the 100 square feet.
Okay, and then on the plan, inside the retaining wall on the side of the deck, last time we were talking about, you said it's supposed to be sort of a walkway, but there's also proposed plantings, and can you address that?
Yeah, you can see it a little bit better here. So that's just a notation. The applicant wanted to, have the ability to add some native plantings along the top of the wall if they'd like. I do know what you're saying. It's a narrow area. So they're going to have to leave enough room for walking by there. So it was just something we wanted to cover in this application if they wanted to pursue any plantings in that area. But that's aside from the mitigation. That's not included in our mitigation calculations.
And at that time, if they want to, they'll come to the commissioner and tell them what they want to add?
How we basically spelled it out in our proposal in the narrative part of the application was that, there'll be native plantings in that area that will be pulled from the town's approved list. If you need additional approval beyond that, we can certainly give you notification or send you the exact plants that are going to be there. But again, they more or less just wanted the ability to add some native plantings there if they, so much wanted to.
I guess I leave that up to the whole group. Is that something that would need approval at that time? If they decide they want to put in native plantings on top of the wall, wouldn't they need to come see the commissioner?
They could probably notify the agent. And
Yeah.
You can put in the order that any ornamental plants that are installed are native and approved by the agent.
Yeah, we can
Of the standard conditions.
add a condition that,
Yeah.
yeah,
I just wanted to make sure that we
handle it through
covered
the
that.
agent. Yep.
Yeah, that's not a problem. We can certainly notify the agent of the plants that are going in. Not a problem.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else?
Just got a quick something. So the bare areas on that slope will be planted, correct? And mulch?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, that's all I had, thanks.
Okay. Sounds like that's it. Okay. You probably want to go to the next earliest work session, don't you?
Ideally, yeah.
I thought so. Pardon?
Rhetorical question.
We're going to have to cut it off at some point. This will put us up to
This will put us to 11.
11. Yeah, that's a lot. So you may be the last one in. Everybody else can sort of prepare their arguments. All right. So
We appreciate
for
that.
the
And
20
I guess just for clarification on that process, do you expect, do I need to be present at that hearing, or is that just?
It's always a
commission
good,
putting-
it's always a good idea, because we're going to construct conditions, and you will see those conditions beforehand. If you have questions or concerns about them, then at the hearing, at the open hearing, or at the open work session, I mean, you would have the opportunity to address those. So yes, it's a good idea.
Okay, great, thank you.
25th.
25th.
25th. Don't let us add any more.
Yeah. Well, we always manage, and everybody works together, it's great.
Right.
And if I may, just one more point of
Certainly.
clarification on that hearing on the 25th. Will you issue the order on the 25th, or does that get pushed to another hearing to be issued, or?
No, we'll issue it, assuming
On the
that, we come to terms, it'll be issued that week, I guess.
Okay, very
Yeah,
good, thank you.
yeah.
Make a motion that we continue 25 Patriot Place to the work session on January 25th, 2023, for an order of conditions.
Latin second.
Roll call vote, Bob.
Aye.
Janet,
Aye.
Karen,
Aye.
Elise,
Aye.
Cheryl,
Aye.
and I vote aye. See you then.
All right, great, thank you very much, Commissioner, have a good day.
Ed thinks he's next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next on the agenda is 489 Stage Harbor Road, Tacoma Partners Limited Partnership, map 14A, parcel 10-8, SE10. Doesn't look like they have a number yet issued, but I'll check that. Lift the existing dwelling and pour a new foundation. It's an after-the-fact driveway and walkway approval.
Good afternoon. For the record, Thad Eldridge with the Southeast. Jason Clark from Monomoy Group came to me a few months ago and said that starting in September, they would like to raise the house, put a new foundation under it, and then put the house back down. Excuse me. They're within zoning setbacks, so it has to be in the same exact spot when all is said and done. The current stone and a little bit of mortar foundation allows too much moisture to come into the building. So to protect it, they would like to complete that work, which was really only temporary within conservation jurisdiction. We completed the plan and we said, hey, what happened to this driveway? He said, oh, we changed that last year. Okay, well, it's in conservation jurisdiction. And he said, it is? So I said, well. So we immediately looked at what can we do for mitigation out here. They would like to plant this spring. We've proposed a 1-to-1 mitigation for this work, and the buffer that it's within is to marginal coastal bank. This is local coastal bank. It's not a seaward face. It's a floodplain that intercepts a slope on the other side of the road. So it's unfortunate that they didn't recognize it as a wetland at the time, but they're willing to make up for that. It's the removal of lawn and planting quite a few different shrubs and trees. With that, if there are any questions, they want to start the planting in the spring, so we don't need an order in January. We can push it off till February.
Thank you for that. Do we know how much was added? in terms
Yes, you
of
can see the
driveway?
red line in there on the plan. That was the old driveway, and then what's in gray and black is the current driveway. And then we did fill out the area, what the previous areas were and what the existing areas are and the change. So you have about 990 square feet of, 1,010 square feet of driveway change. It also includes the walkways that come to the building.
Okay. Anyone who want to start? Here. Oh, Janet?
Okay, I have, it's easy. So the mitigation area, so I was a little confused at the site, because the proposed mitigation area is where currently it's just lawn, is that? 'Cause it wasn't-
Most of it is lawn. There's one a non-native shrub that's there that would be taken out right in front of the house.
The front of the house being the south side?
The south side, thank you.
Okay, so, yeah, I guess that it could have been in better state. It was hard to tell
Okay.
where the mitigation was going. And then it's contiguous to the existing wetland area,
Yes,
and that existing wetland area is, as you say, overrun with invasives?
terribly.
Okay,
To say the least.
okay, so it's a risk putting it there.
We do have a proposed path between so that we have the ability to get in there and keep those non-natives at bay.
Which they'll have to do in perpetuity,
Yes.
okay?
We did talk about land management, and it's just not a commitment that they're ready to make.
Right. Yeah, it's too bad, because it is appears to be overrun even to the uneducated eye that I cast on it. Okay, so we'll put in the invasive management condition, and since it abuts lawn on the other side, there'll be demarcation on the
Yes.
lawn side. Okay. That's it for me for the moment, thank you.
Bob?
Thad, because it is a highly invaded area, will there be like a path of some kind between, or a corridor between the existing invasives
Yes,
and the
a
new
little-
plantings?
2 or 3 foot path, just something to be able to get back there and cut.
Yeah,
Mow strip? Yep.
mow strip, yeah.
Yeah.
And when the pool went in, that was approved?
I believe it was. We didn't find anything in the record that was outstanding.
Because I didn't see any other mitigation on the property, but I don't know.
It's a good question. Is there any way for you to,
We can certainly look it up and bring it back to you.
because the pool doesn't look old.
Yeah.
Okay.
Obviously, that's not an issue for the house itself, which is really old. But when as long as you're looking with regard to the pool, there's also that building.
Mhm.
I think that would be good. We just typically like to do this. It gives us a chance to make sure that everyone's ducks are in a row.
Well, I know that the pool house and the main house were all existing when the septic system went in, and that was approved by the commission.
Okay,
All 3 were shown on the same septic plan, so,
okay.
and that was, I believe, in the 90s.
Including did you say the pool?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
But I will be happy to get the information. for
All
you.
right, so the odds are that they are approved, but it would be good to have confirmation. Anyone else here? There's 2 mitigation areas, right? Isn't there a little one up at the top?
Yes, out in the back corner by the shed.
Is there a reason for that?
It was just a good spot for it.
Okay. Out in the wetland, down the big one on the south,
Mhm.
there are green stakes out in the middle of it. Is that part of your,
The delineation of the wetland,
that's what that was?
I believe so.
Okay. Because you also had, okay, all right. Typically, those green stakes we're seeing as mitigation delineations, but I was a little confused there. One thing that has occurred to me when we talk about mitigation areas that are adjacent to what I call a tsunami of invasives, or sea of invasives, is whether or not the mitigation plants, we'd be better off being trees. Because the invasives have a harder time covering up a tree than they do a shrub.
Until you get into porcelainberry and the other climbers that go right up.
They go right up, but all you have to do is go there with your clippers and you kill it. And it doesn't require a lot of muscle power to take care of invasives in a tree if you stay on it.
Now, there were 3 trees out there that will remain, that they had planted at one point in time.
Yeah, that's
The 3
true.
birches.
But, and I do see, I think you're planting, let me just take a look, I forget.
There's a black oak that's in the area by the shed.
Yeah, you're planting one tree, basically.
Yes.
Yeah. So that was the only thing that occurred to me, and this is actually sort of a new thought for me, because we get this all the time now, where we're next to all these invasives. What can we do besides a mow strip? I personally don't have a lot of faith in mow strips. I think if and when we approve this, we will have a condition, which we've done before, which is to say, show us a year from now with pictures, 2 years from now, whatever, that this is working. Because right now, I think we're sort of in an experimental phase. Do mow strips really protect the mitigation area over the longer term? I don't
As
know.
long as they're maintained, they would. And then
That
it's when
has
somebody
been
lets it go.
asserted. I have my doubts, because a lot of these invasives travel long distances underground. I know this for an actual fact, through hard experience. 3 feet is nothing. And so if they can do that, and they go up inside the mitigation, and they're not noticed, they're not attended to, you're already way behind the curve. So that's why it occurred to me that if we, in this situation, planted big trees, more trees than shrubs, maybe we'd come out ahead. I don't know. That's my speculation. So,
We're also pretty close to that house, so planting a tree that's going to grow.
I'm talking about in the, well, it's not that close, is it?
So if we were to plant a tree in here,
Okay, how about on the other side?
not very far, we already have 3 trees that
3
are
trees
existing
there,
out
okay,
there.
all right. Because it's not a view problem here, right? We're not,
No,
they're
no,
not,
it's
they
not
don't
a
care
view
about looking
concern, it
out
was
at that
just-
crappy little wetland.
Right, but the 3 trees that are in here, you can't,
I'm sorry, it's just, it's a,
Marginal coastal belt.
it is a marginal, actually, this wetland wasn't identified in the DEP maps, nor was it identified in the
all right,
conservancy.
but whenever it's
district.
completely invaded, I think it's a sad wetland. Can we call it a sad wetland?
It is a sad wetland. There are the 3 trees that exist here, and
Okay,
it does no benefit to plant trees too close to each other.
I agree. All right. All right. So this is just something I'm sort of tossing out there for future
Absolutely.
reference, but I'm going to be bringing this up in other similar cases. All right. In this particular case, I accept your argument. Anything else for me or anybody else? So we need to send this to order conditions before he changes his mind and wants to go to January 25th.
I'm sorry, did you say go to January?
No.
No,
February. February would be great, because then
February
they can get in
22nd.
there in March and start the
Yeah.
planting.
It works out well for you and us. All right.
yeah.
February 22nd, okay.
I'll make a motion that we continue 489 Stage Harbor Road to the work session on February 22nd, 2023, for an order of conditions.
Latin second.
Roll call vote, Bob.
Aye.
Janet.
Aye.
Karen.
Aye.
Lise.
Aye.
Cheryl.
Aye.
And I vote aye. Thank you, Thad.
Very good.
Oh, boy, okay.
Yeah, fun.
Up next, Mr. Chairman, is 299 Cranberry Lane, Timothy F. Ryan, map 15K, parcel 7-7, SE number 103594. Project is redevelopment of property, new house, guest house, septic, sports court, and land management plan.
You again. Okay.
Alrighty, me again. So for the record, Thad Eldridge, he's southeast. Paul Muldoon's in the audience. Teresa Sprague is online, and we were out there on Monday. We did add those stakes. That was my mistake, not my field crews. I found that when I opened the staking sheet that I hadn't given them points for those points along the wall. I do have images of those. Those are on my webpage, and we will get those to you in short order.
All right, yeah, that was a good site visit. A lot of abutters and neighbors there, and a lot of questions asked. A lot of things were learned. So, and thank you for the notes, Karen. Detailed notes. So, everyone should be in a great position to ask questions now, and I'm just going to let anybody who wants to do that go ahead. Bob.
Got a couple of questions to start. Teresa, on the planting plan, the neighbor to the east was telling me when they have storms, there's an inundation of water coming in from the coastline towards the existing shed. Are there any of your plantings in the way of that, or will become affected by that? That water, salt water?
Good afternoon, Teresa Sprague with Blue Flax Design. We've actually witnessed the flooding in that area on our very first site visit. Noticed that there's, and at times, standing water, particularly in the area just to the east of the front of the proposed walkway. I have no doubt that water could get up to the footprint of that existing shed. All of the vegetation that's proposed on this site is salt tolerant. It's definitely not salt marsh vegetation, so occasional inundation, it would certainly stand up to regular standing water, could potentially be problematic, but we are not proposing anything in those lower areas where there may be regular standing water or where we've observed regular standing water in the course of time that we've been working on this project. So we've been familiar with this site for just under a year, so I've had a good opportunity to see it through the different seasons. And so I don't suspect that any of our vegetation will be affected by regular standing water.
Okay, and just one other question. Also, I never asked this question before, but I know, talking to the neighbors, there is deer present, from time to time. Would any of your plantings be affected by the deer browsing, or even rabbits?
That is a good question.
And how would you replace plants if they were, eaten and so forth?
So in our experience, nothing is off limits to any animal, and any plant that I've ever said is rabbit proof before, after this past year, I take back, because we've actually had rabbits eating bare root beach grass that we've just planted in the past few weeks, which I've never seen ever before. So that's the short answer. The long answer is deer browse. Mostly we see that on beach plum, which we are proposing 46 beach plum on this site, but there is a significant amount of existing beach plum here that doesn't appear to be affected. So my answer is I don't know. If we find that there's significant deer browse on one particular plant, we have in the past successfully used like a predator excluder, which is just basically, chicken wire over the shrub, just to give it time to get its roots established so that it will live and when it's being browsed. In general, plants that are being browsed, again, we're one of our goals is to provide wildlife habitat. And while we're not necessarily thinking of feeding non-native rabbits or overpopulated deer, they are part of the wildlife that's going to be browsing on some of this. The biggest thing is, can we get the roots established so that the plants can tolerate a certain amount of browse and continue to bounce back? The existing beach plum on the site appears to be really healthy. I have not experienced bayberry, which is another, we're proposing 82 bayberry to be planted in, inkberry holly. I have not experienced a significant amount of deer browse on those plants in the past, but I am learning to never say never. So we would use predator excluders, things like scram or liquid fence. They're effective in short term, but I've only found those to be really effective in really highly managed garden areas where you're constantly reapplying it, not in large mitigation areas. So really the only thing that's been effective for that is predator excluders.
Okay, so you'll be keeping an eye on the plantings anyway as you go along.
We will, and so of course part of our plan is to provide monitoring reports to the commission, so annual monitoring reports. So we'll be out there, and any plants that don't survive the first growing season, we have it written into our land management plan that they'll be replaced.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay. I'll go if are you ready to go? Okay.
I'll take up the last one.
You'll finish, okay. Yeah, there's a lot to like about the project, obviously. There's a tremendous amount of mitigation going in. At the site visit, Teresa, you were up there with tape because you realized some additional trees had to come out relative to, I guess, the plan we're looking at.
I believe there was one tree that was not shown on the site plan that I marked. The other tape was on trees that are already marked for removal on the site plan that I just flagged to make it clear
Oh, I
at the
see.
site visit, the exact trees they were. So there was the 2 cedar trees, an oak tree, and a pitch pine in the layout of the garage. And I think there was one tree on the area where the driveway wall may go that was questionable. It's not shown on the site plan, and I believe I flagged it, but the flagging was done on trees that are already marked for removal.
Right. So do we need an updated site plan showing where the actual retaining wall will be going in? Or is this accurate?
That's accurate. We'll
I-
just double check that we've located the tree that,
I'm talking about
question.
both the trees on that, what I call, sort of the back end of the bank, and as well as this retaining wall, because when we were there, it wasn't obvious to some of us. We're trying to follow on the plan where that retaining wall went, and some of us, we just weren't really following it. So I didn't know if that meant that it wasn't completely laid out here on the plan or not.
oh, it was, we just didn't get the points to the crew to stake it.
Just wasn't staked enough. Okay, so we couldn't see it that way. The only thing that that is an issue for me is that you are cutting into what is essentially pretty pristine, to me, tell me if I'm wrong, Teresa, habitat on that hill where the retaining wall is going. Anyway, go ahead. It's like you're gonna.
Yeah, there is a small portion of that retaining wall. So on our plan, we show the area of invasive species management in the darker green color. There is a small portion of that retaining wall that's going to be cutting into that slope where we do have a really lovely native plant community. That's directly to the west of the house, exactly. And then there's a small portion of that wall that cuts in that area. We are showing that area to be completely restored. And then as I saw on Thad's site plan, the tree that I think was in question, if you see the mark at 12.5, the spot elevation 12.5 in the driveway, there's one pitch pine that's right along the edge of that wall, and it was unclear whether that may end up, we're proposing to save it right now, and based on the way the plan is drawn, it looks like and as Paul explained, there's no footing to this wall, so we should be able to save that pitch pine. That shouldn't be a problem. If, however, that pitch pine is damaged when the wall is constructed, we are proposing to replant pitch pines in that area, and we could certainly plant one more pitch pine if that tree were to be disturbed during the construction of that wall.
Okay. And so I assume that if I said to you, is there a way for that garage to be moved further away from that bank,
which puts it closer to all the action. We have a floodplain that comes through. So pushing it away from the bank,
Well, it depends on how far you push it, obviously, but
yeah. That'd be a question for the architect, I think. Can we move that garage over?
Good afternoon, Paul Muldoon, Muldoon Architects. We were fairly strategic on the placement there, and knowing that we're cutting into that bank a little bit and utilizing the foundation wall of the structure to support some of that grade. That swath between the 50s there was strategic. We're trying to place it in that area where we're between the 50 and the 100, of course steering clear of the floodplain. Can we push it further south? To some degree, yes. There's no reason why we can't. Substantial movement means substantial change. If we said 18 inches, is that substantial enough?
I don't know.
36 inches?
I'd have to go back out there and stare at it with that in mind, but, it's, as I said, it appears to be pristine habitat. I don't know how much you could move it in order for me not to feel queasy about it, but any amount you could do, obviously, is to the good.
Sure.
How important it is, I'll let my colleagues opine on that. But that, overall, though, the rest of the project, and this is another one of those projects where not that much mitigation is required. A lot is being offered. That's understood, appreciated, and so there's not a lot we can whine about with that in perspective. But I am going to whine about that particular thing. So other than that, and I'll let others here tell me whether or not I'm just whining for no good reason. And that's really my only remaining concern. Anybody has any thoughts on that? Rush, go ahead.
Okay.
You'll bite?
I'll join you in I was surprised, I have to say, at the on-site to look at that hill and realize how much of it was going to be cut into. And I understand all the constraints, and there are many, with the way that this topography of this site, which is incredibly confusing, because things start and stop. But I wonder if the house could be shifted. What would 18 inches do? I don't know. Whether pulling it back away from that hillside by 18 inches would save a lot more of it. It might be worth just taking a look at and seeing what that could do. So I'll just echo that. I have a couple of clarification questions. Thad, there was a statement in the narrative, I think it was in the work protocol, that said that all plant material within the limit of work will be removed. So that sent me to the site plan to look for the limit of work, which I would suspect is pretty much the whole property.
It is the whole property.
Okay,
No,
so
we'd
that
only be
statement-
removing what needs to be removed.
Okay, so that statement is not quite
Correct.
accurate. Will you take a look at that and remove the language that says that you can remove all of that? And speaking of work protocols, so you're proposing steps into the revetment. Is there a reason they have to have access at that point when there is open access at the end of Cranberry Lane to get to the beach?
So, one of the abutters has been very vocal about he wants to ensure that the Ryans and their guests stay on their side of the line. So we're trying to appease the abutter by enabling an access that stays on their side of the half of the
Do
street.
they not have an easement going,
They do.
so they have a legal right to use that?
Mhm.
Nonetheless, the abutter.
Historically, there's been a lot of spillover, because there's a lot of beach on the abutter's side.
All right, so let me ask further. To to construct those steps on an existing revetment, what is the work protocol? Do you have to remove some of the stones that are there?
It would
and
be
then
reassembling those stones and then cutting into them so that there are steps built in.
And how much of the revetment, how many of those stones have to be removed?
It would just be reassembling them. It would be the same number of stones, just aligning them correctly and then cutting in stairs.
So you're
It's,
cutting into the rock to create, so there's no separate stairway structure, it's just,
Right into the rock. There were a couple of those up by Minister's Point.
I have
the
seen those,
south
but
side.
can you supply a work protocol that
Sure.
describes how that's going to be done? Thank you. I'm assuming that this is a large family that has frequent visitors. Nonetheless, I have two concerns about the new driveway. And in fact, because I'm sharing the screen, you can see where I made a mark on here, looking at access to that driveway area that would come off further down Far End Lane, where it's in yellow, that would impact less of the no disturb zone than what's being impacted when it starts up here and curves down. Why didn't it just, and there's a description in the narrative that says that the choice that was made was designed to minimize disturbance in the no disturb. So why wouldn't you just take it in from here?
So while the neighbor has an easement over the subject property, the Ryans do not have an easement over the neighbor's property. So we couldn't make it all the way up to here to get back to there.
So we have it's coming in from their property. Where's the property line?
The property line is in green here.
Okay.
The road isn't necessarily within the road. If you were to scroll down a bit further, you can see that the dirt road is within the road layout, and then it deviates out of the road layout. Back in the day when they would draw it without knowing where the wetland was exactly.
But I still am looking at it thinking, within that green property line, you could still start the new driveway further up and reduce the square.
We can
the
certainly
impact.
review that. I'd want to review that with the neighbor first. There's a change in the material, and we were avoiding intruding upon their space.
Okay, I would like to just to ask that, because
Sure.
it could cut the impact coverage area significantly if it were shortened up. The other thing that struck me about this area, along with the grass pave over here, and a parking area here, is by my count, if this area in the new driveway is designed for 5 cars, this is what the narrative says. You know, quick gauge of the ruler was telling me that the area over here, proposed parking, would hold about 5 cars. These grass paves look like they would hold about 4 or 5 cars. So I'm adding it up and thinking you're providing parking for 15 to 20 cars. That's,
Almost. So in order to be able to get through here and turn around, you can really only fit 2 cars in here. And the purpose of the grass pave is to enable larger vehicles to be able to turn around. So it wasn't intended for parking. It
it says
intended-
parking though. That's what got my attention, was
Sure.
looking at the number of times the word parking was appearing on the plan.
So
Uh,
parking / turnaround.
The grass pave
Parking.
was also in response to neighborhood discussion about the loop coming down Cranberry and minimizing the opportunity for cars to continue on to the neighboring property and work themselves around. So with this on our property, we can have Amazon trucks and landscape trucks and life safety trucks back into this grass pave and then pull out on the property rather than pull around the bend on the sand. That was a very strategic conversation we had with our abutter there, trying to minimize the activity going up and onto their property.
I appreciate that. I just think that another look at the amount of parking, and maybe not so much the grass pave areas don't bother me. I do understand the need for larger delivery trucks. I think I'm most concerned about the parking off the new driveway. Maybe some of that can be decreased a bit.
Oh, sure.
Okay. There's just an awful lot of parking.
The area around the new garage, we have a one-bay garage there.
Right.
So it's one car directly in, needing the space to turn and pull out. So we're expecting the Ryans, Tim and Carrie, this is their primary residence in the near future. And they'll be parking there, and for 2 cars to be in that area and be able to back out onto that grass pave and pull out onto Far Lane, that works. If we have 2 more cars in there, it doesn't work, and cars will be backing out onto Far End Lane. So we're trying to reserve enough space for a car in the
Oh,
driveway.
so, okay, I'm sorry. I see the grass pave marked here. I guess I was looking at this area where it's bumped out in front of the grass pave, so there's even more. I understand that this design allows for maximum flexibility and usability, but it is within resource areas. So
Understood.
I'm just asking that another look be made to see if some of that can be decreased a bit. Do we have a letter? Does anyone know if we have a letter from National Heritage? It's a.
I believe they were happy with the project.
They are?
Yes.
Well, that's good to hear, but I haven't seen it, so I'm just curious because it was listed as a site. Lastly, for me, is do you have a date for zoning board?
Not at the moment.
All right, thank you, that's it.
So when we were out there on Monday, Thad, we were talking about the current office area that is sunk in and it needs to be FEMA compliant, and you were saying there would need to be regrading and some fill. Can you just talk about how that regrading and the fill, amount of fill or whatever will be needed?
And we're really only talking 2 feet of depth
Okay,
of fill. The current building extends into that floodplain, so there's the floodplain line. And then actually, the floodplain currently extends into the building on both sides. The idea is just to pull that away a little bit so we can get a building that's outside of that floodplain. So a couple of feet of fill, and it's under restoration, so it's allowed under zoning.
okay, and the regrading, how dramatic is the regrading?
Oh, not very at all.
Not very?
Again, 2 foot
Okay.
of depth. We're really trying to emulate what it would have looked like before that addition went on.
I thought when we were out there, we were sort of saying that we believe it used to be almost flat, at that, where, so that's why I was asking, because below that hill is very flat. So that's why I was asking.
Is that it, Karen?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
Teresa, you have your hand up.
Thank you. I just wanted to speak to Janet's question regarding, or statement regarding the parking. And so this home previously has been a rental. And when I was out there during the summer, what I was witnessing was exactly what we saw when we were all parking on the site for our on-site visit. And that is that cars are parking everywhere. So they're currently parking up on the slope to the front lawn. They're parking in multiple different areas. So I think that this is an improvement in that it really directs where the parking is going to be, where it's currently everybody's sort of parking willy-nilly, for lack of a better phrase, mainly in the area where we're showing the proposed grass paved parking turnaround on the eastern side of the driveway near the proposed new garage. Right now, everybody is just kind of pulling in and parking up on that lawn, parking up in other areas. So One of the things we were considering when we proposed the grass pave is just the fact that this is temporary, so for occasional overflow parking or the need for a larger vehicle to turn around, like a delivery truck, that this would provide for that. But it's not long-term parking or permanent parking where people are regularly parking. So those grass paved areas would only be used in a situation where perhaps there's a family gathering and extra family members are going to be there. Otherwise, they'll remain as Cape Cod lawn and won't be regularly parked on and used. So I think this plan actually sort of consolidates the parking, where currently parking on this site has just been wherever somebody can find a spot to pull in, which is what we experienced on Monday. Thanks.
I parked there.
All right. Bob Moore, go ahead.
Got a few more, Teresa. I know the neighbors were concerned with lighting, and you mentioned that step up to the new court will be lit. Any other areas that will be lit?
The other areas that would be lit are just the walkway, so the stairs going up to the main walkway into the house. So we'd want just some footpath lighting, so down-facing lighting just to provide safe access, footpath to walk up the stairs, up the walkway, and then into the patio. I'll let Paul answer regarding any, front entry lighting. We haven't discussed that. Paul may have designed that. I did want to, make sure the neighbors understood there would be no uplighting, there will be no floodlighting on this site. Obviously, we know the impact that lighting can have on wildlife. Our goal is to minimize that, but just allow for safe foot access through the walkways and step areas.
And that's just low voltage lighting? Is that what that is?
Low voltage, yep, exactly. Low voltage foot lighting, yes.
And architecturally on the structure, the garage door, there's a side door next to the garage door, which will have a light over the top. The rest of the lighting will be underneath a covered porch, both on the front entry side as we approach from that walkway. The front entry door is in that nook, so we'll have some lighting underneath that porch and over the door. And then on the north side of the house, the covered porch there will have recessed lighting as well.
Okay, so it's not going to be like New York City then, correct?
Absolutely not.
What about the sports court? Is that going to be lit at all?
None, besides walking path lighting at the stairs.
Oh,
And Teresa, you mentioned transplanting that inkberry, that existing inkberry by the house.
We can add that as a plan note with, and there's plenty of places for us to put that inkberry, so we can certainly add that as a plan note to transplant the existing inkberry holly that would be within the footprint of the new construction.
Okay, and the other thing was demarcation, especially where the grasses are up against the turf lawns. Would that be done so that these areas aren't mowed?
well, first of all, are there any turf lawns?
Well, turf, I mean
Okay,
a fescue,
right.
fescue lawns.
So in areas where those are interfacing, there's a lot of woody vegetation in there. So for instance, if you look just to the east of the proposed shed near the sports court, there's an area shown in the darker green where the invasive species management is going to be taking place, and that directly abuts the lawn. The reason that we're not showing shrubs in that area is because there's a good stand of existing bayberry that's going to remain. So I know in cases where we have large open areas of grassland and meadow that having that demarcation or that low single rail fence really does prevent mowers from moving in. But we've got a lot of woody vegetation that's directly abutting that Cape Cod lawn area that's between the sports court and the house. So I don't know that having that low fence will provide any additional protection, keeping mowers out of those areas. It can certainly be done. It just might, maybe it's a belt and suspenders approach, but there's a lot of woody vegetation that's going back. So a lot of bayberry, et cetera, that's either going to remain or be replanted.
Okay. And we discussed no permanent irrigation again, correct? The existing
Correct.
irrigation system's coming out, no subsurface irrigation.
Correct.
Thank you.
Bob? Anyone else? So it sounds like, is it fair to characterize much of what we are talking about in terms of potential changes has to do with the driveway configurations? We'll be discussing that to see if there's anything that is feasible. I don't know what to do about that bank. I would ask you to take a look to see whether it really is just 18 inches or not.
Well, if the updated stakes are there, which that is mentioned, it'll make it more clear in my eyes to see how much we're
Right.
carving out.
And I'll try to get back out there as well, see if I can put my 2 cents in on that. But anyway, other than that, I think we're making good progress here. It's overall, from an environmental perspective, this strikes me as a plus. So we're just talking about the details at this point. So,
Oh, I have a question.
okay,
I'm
Janet.
sorry, just something else I forgot I noticed on the plan. Why is there a propane tank behind the bicycle shed?
That's for the generator.
Oh, that's, okay, so the generator is propane.
This one is.
Okay.
Gotta have a generator on the Cape. So what are, you need zoning? You need Board of Health?
Yes, we do need Board of Health.
So what would be a time frame for you to come back? So their next hearing is the first Wednesday, February, whatever that is,
Fourth.
4th.
First.
Oh, yeah. That's right, February 1st. And then there's also the 8th.
What is that, the 8th?
February 8th.
February 8th. So we have pretty much everything hammered out. We'll go through these details. It gives us a little extra time to
Yeah.
take a look at
We'll
everything.
take all the time you want.
I move that we continue 299 Cranberry Lane to the next, to the hearing on February 8th, 2023.
Latin second.
Roll call vote, Bob.
Aye.
Janet.
Aye.
Karen.
Aye.
Elise.
Aye.
Cheryl.
Aye.
I vote aye. See
Thank
you
you
then.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Raylan.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, Mr. Chairman, is 27 Tillipy Run, New Milford Realty Corporation, map 15A3, parcel N137, SC number 103546, and the work is proposed rock revetment, reconstruction, return extension, and elevation extensions.
Hi, Catherine Ricks here with Coastal on behalf of the applicants. And thank you again for splitting this one off of the full 3 properties that we've been reviewing on a continual basis. I have my presentation pulled up, and I'm going to start that. Okay, so today we're just talking about the 27 Tillipy Run, which is the most northern property along those Tillipy Run properties. And here is just the full revetment along all 3 properties. And then I'm just going to focus in on 27 Tillipy. So we have the existing revetment in front, and we're requesting to increase the elevation on that. And this one would be at the 1.5 to 1 slope, and the top elevation of 20, which was reduced from the original 21 that we had based on comments from Greg Berman. And then the main focus is this return, especially due to the exacerbated erosion that has occurred recently. So our return has the bulkhead along the inside, and then a low toe revetment to protect the end, to make sure that it's not just one vertical structure there. So along that return with the bulkhead, there is 2 sets of anchoring whales, the whale and the anchoring system. on the bulkhead, and then there is the low toe revetment. You can see that it's not up to the full 20-foot that we've requested across the shoreline revetment. And I know what's been discussed previously is how will the bulkhead and the revetment be placed there. There is a phasing to it depending on the constructability and the ability of the bulkhead to be in place, because the bulkhead with sediment on both sides can stand as a cantilever bulkhead. Once the sediment is reduced on the one side, we have to put the anchors in to support the bulkhead. So with the phasing, it would be once the top of the bank gets within 10 feet of where the bulkhead is, after the bulkhead is placed, once it gets to the erosion gets to that point, then we would want the contractor to be out there, be able to go out there and place the top set of anchors, and potentially the second set depending on how much the erosion is occurring. But the second set of erosion again would be when it gets closer to the top, then you could put the lower one in if you don't put it in at the same time. And then the toe revetment would be placed once the sediment is eroded enough to where there'd be minimal excavation to get the stones in there. Most of the stones would be laid on what the sediment would be at the time, and you would just be potentially digging in to place the toe of the revetment stones. And just to show kind of an update on the erosion status, these are pictures from 10/4, and then I went out 1/3 after that storm we had on 12/23, where the winds really came from the north, and the winds came in and caused additional erosion from what has already occurred when we started this process. If you remember at the beginning of the process, though, that wood down there and that part of the stairway was actually still part of the bank. There was still sediment there. So you can see there's definitely been a change. That fence that you probably remember along the property line is currently, like you can see,
Catherine,
on the ground, on the beach. Yep.
I don't think we're seeing what you think we're seeing. We're seeing a faraway view.
Cover page.
Yeah, the cover page, I guess.
Oh, is it not going? Huh, it's showing on my screen. I apologize. Let me see if, okay, I don't know why it did that.
You just paged forward.
I'll stop
then.
sharing and I'll read.
Okay.
It actually was showing on my other screen. I apologize. It meant to share. Let's try this. Go back to it. Okay, so now it's showing.
Yeah,
When
that's
you
it.
hit presentation, it didn't present on the correct page. So I'll go back lightly just to show.
Oh, yes.
So we have the revetment that we've seen where the elevation's now at 20. The return with the bulkhead, and we've shown the bulkhead and the low revetment. This just shows the anchoring system. So there's 2 anchors on the bulkhead once it's eroded. This is the phasing, just to show step by step where it would go. So it doesn't all have to occur at once, because we wouldn't want to increase the erosion at one time. We'd wait for it to naturally erode to certain points before we put in the anchoring and before we put in the revetment. And then this is the pictures. So I don't know if you've been out there recently, but the arrows are kind of showing the rocks and how they have fallen behind the revetment, and the timber from the stairs that is now very visible, which back, I think when we went out there maybe last March or April, was definitely covered with the sediment, was as part of the bank. And here's where the fence was along the property line, and that tree that I'm pointing out in all 3 of the pictures, and then the fence and a portion of the fence I actually saw on the beach at this point. Yeah, so a lot has occurred. I'm not sure if you've seen these pictures. Ted Keon supplied us with these aerials that were done after that 12/23 storm, and you can see how it has definitely increased in almost getting to the emergency point where we're getting very close to the property on that northern side. And then I wanted to let Jen take over and do the portion of the restoration plan.
Good afternoon, everyone. For the record, Jen Crawford from Crawford Lane Management. So our restoration plan is actually fairly simple. The existing conditions, as I'm sure you know, there's a very narrow vegetated buffer strip right along the top of the bank that is all within the limit of work. So we are basically proposing to revegetate any existing naturalized areas that will be within the area of construction. And in addition to that, we are proposing over 4,800 square feet of mitigation in the form of lawn removal to increase that vegetated buffer strip from the top of the coastal bank. Along with that, we are proposing to replant 10 trees and have a fairly extensive list of shrubs and grasses and forbs that will go in there. We try to locate those species accordingly with the site conditions. So of course the toughest ones growing on the upper face of the coastal bank above the new revetment. And as we get further inland, trying to incorporate a few more species to really increase that diversity list, but in a manner that we think is doable, so to speak, with the wind and salt spray that this particular site experiences. Like I said, our restoration and mitigation plan is actually pretty simple in nature, so I'm happy to answer any questions about it.
All right, thank you, Jen. So I'm just going to ask a background question. I thought my recollection when we began all of this, which was some time ago now, when was it? It was a long time ago.
April, March or April.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Early spring. That I thought that the mitigation was being offered for all three properties at once. In other words, there was going to be mitigation, I think maybe it was on the far property that would be covering work on this property. But now, I guess, whether or not I'm remembering that correctly, the point right now is that the mitigation being offered on this property is for the work on this property and not for work on any other property.
Correct. The restoration plans for each property are individual, so each one is based on the impact from the revetment on that property.
All right, that does make it much, if that's the way it was, if that wasn't the way it was before, then it makes it simpler. Okay. So again, as background, you're going to be coming back then for the middle property, right?
Yes, so we're scheduled for the February 1st hearing for the other two properties.
For the other, okay.
Based on the return on this property and the amount of erosion that has occurred, we'd really like to start moving on that, which is why we
Right, this
requested to do that.
constitutes sort of a we're now in quasi-emergency stage for this, yeah.
Correct.
Okay. Questions, comments on this one?
I have a simple question because I can't remember. Does the bulkhead go in first and then you'll be doing the revetment? I assume?
Correct. So it's really potentially a completely separate contractor that would go in and put the steel sheets in for the bulkhead return. And then the shoreline revetment's really a separate project, rebuilding that and increasing the height on that. The return is going to be one project that would start with the bulkhead. And then, as I said, as the erosion occurs, there would be points where, okay, at this point, we're going to have the contractor go out and put the top set of anchors in. At this amount of erosion, the second set of anchors. And then once it gets down to where the revetment will be placed on the sediment, and you wouldn't have to do any additional excavation except for the toe stones, that would be when that revetment would be placed in.
So the revetment.
And the access.
The revetment starts at the top and then you work your way down? Is that what you just said?
No, the bulkhead. So the bulkhead's in, then the erosion. As the erosion occurs down, you'd put the first set of anchors in, which are down from the top.
Okay.
And then it occurs more, you'd put that second set, and the revetment's last down at the toe. It would be an extension. It will transition from the shoreline revetment around the corner. It would reduce in height down to the height at that return.
Okay, I got it now, I think.
It's complicated.
I think.
So Catherine, you had some some schematic plans for the phasing. Can you provide us copies of that to help?
That was in, oh,
Is
yes,
that-
I can. Those were our construction drawings that we sent out to contractors to look
Yeah.
at, so I can send
Thank you,
those.
that would help. So the steel sheets that comprise the bulkhead, how many are there?
And more, I think, depends on, I think Todd can answer that. It's the sizing of the sheets, but I know Todd can, if he wants to, or it's, I believe, 85 linear feet of 60-foot tall steel sheets.
Yeah.
And Jenny,
Yes, go ahead.
would you like me to explain further, or is
Yes,
that?
please, because
Sure.
I'm trying to envision how the size of it, the scale of it, and how it goes in is a challenge.
Give me 1 second. Sorry, I had a background meeting going on behind me.
Oh.
I just didn't want to interrupt this hearing. So the steel sheets are interlocking sheets. They're a Z-shaped sheet of steel. So and they interlock. Catherine, I don't know if you can bring up a detail if we have one that kind of shows that. But they are, if I'm remembering this sheet correctly, each Z section is about 18 inches long. So when they're actually put in together as a U-shaped, so they're two sections put together, so they're about 36 inches long. So we'll install those. They install them as they go down the wall. So they'll install one sheet down to the depth. They'll put the interlock in and start driving the sheet in, and continue going up to the end of the wall. So you can see if you zoom into that plan view there, you can see there like a U-shaped set where you've got what we call a belly and a face of the sheet. Each one is its own unit. That Z section where it goes from the knuckle to the knuckle, the middle piece to the other bottom middle piece. Those are individual sheets. They're usually driven in a two-pair set. They get held by the driving hammer and installed into the ground. And as they get installed, they're 60 feet long. So they get installed to basically to the existing grade, and then they continue on for that. This particular sectional wall is 74 feet. I think there's a bend that is another 10 feet or so. So it's roughly 83 feet. So if you look at the cross-section, Catherine, on one of the phasing sheets would probably help. So the sheets are driven from above, and they're put in through the top surface and driven down, and then each one is interconnected. So you can see the big amount of excavation in front of the wall, the seaward side, we would have to do to even be able to install the anchors, because that exposed face of wall is 14 feet to the bottom anchor, and then another 7 feet down to the top of the revetment. So if you go up to the phase 4, you can see how deep that ends up being. So that's why phasing it is so critical. Either that, or we're excavating out the bank in advance of nature doing its thing.
Well, that's what I was thinking as I was trying to envision how this is actually installed, is what are the risks of making the situation there even worse by all the activity involved with this, as you said, hammering these sheets into place.
And all that work is done from behind the sheets, up on the bank, so behind the dwelling and the structures, so that we minimize the impact to the coastal bank, and that's why we don't want to excavate out early if we don't have to. And as it continues to erode back towards the bulkhead, there is a point in time where contractors still need to be able to access it and be able to get a 10-foot wide working platform or 15-foot wide working platform down there to install the anchors. Now, the majority of the anchors can be installed from above, but you still need personnel to be able to cut out the sheet and, do the face work that's on it. So the idea is to not disturb the coastal bank until absolutely necessary. But by putting the sheets in, it protects the structures and the property in the event we get another storm like we did around Christmas, where we lose a good section of coastal bank. This would at least protect it and give the opportunity to go do the next phase and not be in jeopardy of having a massive failure.
So once you've completed all the phases and it's installed, what is the height from ground elevation to the top of the bulkhead? How much of it is?
It varies along the section. So you can see here, this is starting out towards the shoreline, varying up because this line right here is the existing bank right there. So as the existing grade goes up, the bulkhead will go up. So it'll really just follow along with where it's going to be level with the existing ground in that area. And we're not trying to make this above what's existing behind it. So I think at this point it's at about 25 here, and then up at the top I believe it's 33 to 35 at this top point.
So you said the design, the concept is to not exceed ground elevation.
Correct. You can see the existing, we pretty much followed the existing
okay.
with just keeping a straight line, but following the existing terrain there.
Okay, that's what I was trying to figure out, was whether it exceeded ground elevation. And will you have a document or something that we can, besides all of these good drawings, which are very helpful, a work protocol for the installation of this that has a narrative component to it?
If that could be one of the conditions for the pre-construction meeting, just because depending on the contractor, you could get a different construction means and methods. They vary slightly.
Right.
That could be a condition within the permit that at the pre-construction, the contractor provide their means and methods.
Yes, okay. Okay, I have some other questions on mitigation, but I'm going to see if anybody else has questions on the revetment and bulkhead.
Okay.
I just have one question for Jen on the mitigation. I think it would be helpful to put something substantial enough to demarcate the buffer strip from the lawn. It'd probably be a kind of something for safety as well. Either a low single rail fence or some substantial, rocks or something. What do you think?
Yep, we've worked with Nikki in the past. That's usually a standard condition in your orders. So we've worked with Nikki in the past in various ways to meet that based on what the client, based on where the client falls with that. A lot of times we use just a simple steel landscape edge because it's easy to install and it's relatively inexpensive in terms of needing to install a fence and then upkeep it in the future and other things like that. And the vegetative buffer strip does really increase that distance between the top of the bank and where that naturalized vegetation starts. Right now it is a little bit precarious actually. In parts it goes right up to the edge. So if the commission is still accepting of the use of a steel landscape edge, I think that would be honestly the easiest and a very good and consistent way to demarcate that lawn area from that mitigation area.
Mm-hmm. I'm just thinking of small children as well, though. If they were playing close to that area. But that's fine as long as it's as long as it can be seen,
They're very common and easily detectable, so to speak.
Yeah, and that would be consistent across all three eventually. Okay, thank you.
I have one other question for Catherine. I was noticing we've talked about the slope issue a lot over these three properties. And the other two I know had settled at a 2-to-1. No, at a 2-to-1. So, and this one
Yes.
is 1.5, but in the cross-section, it looked to me like the existing is listed as 2-to-1. So on section C1, the cross-section at C1.
I believe the existing is 1.5 to 1 for this property.
That's what I thought. So is C1.
And we were staying within the same footprint at the toe, the same footprint all the way up to the existing, and then just extending that. I don't believe the existing is actually, it may have been shown.
It may be, C1 may be right at the property line with 59
Yes,
between.
because I'm seeing 1.5 to 1, but.
C1 existing shows 2
Oh,
to 1
okay.
anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, but everything is 1 to 5
It's-
existing on this property. And
Yes.
it's staying at 1 to 5.
The actual
at 1.5.
roster, yes, 1.5, yes.
Okay. Jen, I have a question for you. All I have to do is find the planting plan. Concerning tree removal. Are all the trees that are on the seaward side, if there are any, of where the bulkhead is being installed, are there any existing trees there, and are they all to be removed?
So, what we did, there was no tree survey data for that particular portion of the property over on the bulkhead side, but we did take the liberty of
Right here they are.
basically inventorying anything that was
Yep, there they are.
more significant, and so that's where we got the number of 10 trees as replacement, as 1-to-1. And we tried to replace some of them in the same area where they're coming out, but there are clearly areas, that will go, there will not be land there someday, so we did not want to plant anything there. So those trees were not surveyed in that particular area, but we did do some field work to determine anything that was significant in there.
So those.
And we did assume that all trees within the limit of work would be removed. And I think that, as Catherine had suggested, based on the contractor that's chosen, maybe all of them don't have to be removed. But we made that assumption.
Okay,
for the
so
permitting process.
my get, I'm looking at it at the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 oaks that are Xed out. That's where the revetment is going in, so that's why.
Eventually, yes.
Including a 12-inch diameter, 16-inch, bunch of 8s. But on the other side, on the landward side of the bulkhead, in the restoration area, there are 3 more oaks. A 10 and 4/8, 14. So there's some pretty significant size oaks. So what is the?
Hold up, are you talking about on the other side, or just on the other side of the bulkhead?
On the other side of the bulkhead, right in front of,
Yep.
yeah, the 4 that are listed there.
Yep.
A 14-inch, a 10-inch, and 2/8.
Yep.
So.
6 where the revetment.
And 6 where the
will be,
revetment
and then-
is, those 6 I understand. But what about, what is the rationale for removing these 4?
So, like I said, it really, maybe they won't have to be removed. I'm not really sure because we do not have a contractor chosen for this part of the project yet. So not really knowing what their construction methodology will be. Like I said, we just assumed that everything within the limit of work would need to be cleared in order for access and the work to take place. Maybe it wouldn't. I'm not sure. Catherine or Todd might be able to address that more better than I can, so to speak. And also those tree locations, Janet, just so you know, they are approximate because they weren't surveyed. So we kind of dotted them in the field just so we could get some semblance of an accurate count for you, so to speak.
Okay, so everything within that limit of work line, I guess because of the access that's needed to install both the bulkhead and the revetment.
We assumed that it would be going away, which is why we proposed restoration of that area. But clearly, if there are areas that are not necessary to disturb, then they wouldn't be disturbed and we wouldn't replant in them if they're all
But
still vegetated. so
When
to
will
speak.
you know that? Not
I
until,
think
That's a
that-
better question. Yeah, it's a better question for Kat and Todd than me.
That would be the construction means and methods,
yeah,
I guess if you wanted it in a memo, or the construction means and methods from the contractor would let you know exactly what they would need. If they could use inside of, like, going from the driveway above the revetment and from the driveway over the apartment garage to install that bulkhead without really disturbing that other area inside of the bulkhead, then I believe that they wouldn't need to remove that. But that would definitely be something, depending on their equipment they're able to get and that they have, and how they plan on putting it in.
okay, then somehow we need to figure out a way so that it's not, we're not creating an assumption that all of these are definitely coming out, so that there's still a question to be answered further down the line, once a
Yes, and
contractor
I
is-
believe Jen included the restoration for all of it, so it would just be not needing to do the full restoration plan, but I believe the restoration plan is pretty conservative on including all of that area and all those
Yeah.
trees.
That's correct. And Janet, if it would be helpful, I think that there could easily be a special condition that just says, when the construction of the bulkhead and the revetment is complete, but before the mitigation or restoration work commences, we can evaluate and see and let you know, so to speak, informally, whether or not everything was cleared within the limit of work, or whether or not they were able to save areas. And if we need to submit just a plan revision, just to show those conditions, and if they've changed, we'd be more than happy to do that. I think that would make sense to keep the project accurate, so to speak.
That makes sense to me. Okay. Figure out how to word that, but that sounds like a way to resolve it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, I don't see any other hands. I do have a question or comment about on your plan, the overall site plan. And I know you're adding that for context, but I'm a little queasy about having that in here. We approve the plan for 27, but by inference, I'm a little leery of having the overall.
Yeah, because we haven't updated the other ones. If you wanted, we can submit a new plan that would just not include this.
I think that would be the right thing to
that
do.
front sheet.
Yes, to remove it.
Yeah, because we are currently updating the other ones. So yes, we can definitely redo our set that would not include that overall and just include 27.
Right, and when you're doing that, I think I mentioned this before, but just I'll say it again. Would you please make it clear which property, the addresses for the properties, because I don't see it
Yep.
on these, and also make the property lines more better,
Yes.
bigger.
When we submitted this, unfortunately, the property lines were turned off.
I see.
This
Yeah.
most recent set. Previous sets had the property lines. This one, it was turned off. But I do want to share, because I know you said that it's not obvious on the properties. This is where we have on each property who the owners are.
Yeah, you know who that is.
And that's
but
what yeah, so that's been on them. Do you want it
just the address.
in a different location?
No, just the address.
Oh, because we do it without the full, okay.
Yeah.
Yes, so adding, right below there, adding which actual physical address it is.
Yeah.
Not just the mapping parcel. Okay.
Right. And I think I'm looking at yours, and it looks like mine. There's stuff that has labels, but there's no drawings associated with it. I don't know whether that's your intent, or as you move away from the revetment, there are more and more labels that appear, like there's one called hedge, there's one called whatever, all kinds of things.
Okay.
that don't have any actual drawings associated with them, so it's a little confusing.
Oh, okay. Back in here describing the lot over here, we did have some, and we can make sure that we clean that up.
Yeah, okay, good. And that'll take care of all of my concerns there.
Okay.
All right, so are we there yet? I think we're there. I think, when will you begin? As soon as this meeting ends?
So, on that bulkhead, on the return, we'd really like to get moving as soon as we can. We have reached out to contractors, so we do have some things lined up. We are in communication with the Wildlife Refuge consistently throughout this process. They know that it is going on, so we would like to, and you know this is coming, because of the situation, we'd really like to be on the January 25th meeting because we don't want to wait another month just so we can really start this
in this
process.
particular case, I understand. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I understand. We're just gonna have to ask for overtime, that's all.
Double time.
Since
Double
we
time.
opened it,
Double-
Yeah.
double time of zero is
Yeah.
pretty much zero.
Yeah.
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 All right, so I guess we're ready. So this is for the next, for the work session, I guess.
25th?
I'll move that we continue 27 Tillapi Run to the next work session on January 25th, 2023 for an order of conditions.
Latin second.
Roll call vote, Bob.
Aye.
Janet,
Aye.
Aaron,
Aye.
Elise,
Aye.
Cheryl,
Aye.
and I vote aye as well. So good luck.
Well, I'm
Go
not,
Thank
forth,
you. We'll
go
submit
forth.
that plan with the updated addresses on it and just having the 27
No.
Tillapi focus
I'll
before
get
that.
my order
All right, thank you.
Okay.
comment to
Thank
me.
you very much.
And with that, we're going to take a little
Okay.
break.
Yep.
Little break. And you're leaving, okay. So, like
The two 1.
7-minute break? Things are bad.
Accessible in a few years.
Things are bad.
Yeah, this was that finding plus, things are really bad.
The fence is gone. We were standing in front of that fence when we went initially to see it.
High tide for 3 or 4 cycles. You guys are good.
We're back, guys. We are back. So, and so, Paul, go ahead and lead us into our next one.
Moving right along and getting close to the end. Next on the agenda, Mr. Chairman, is 66 Billings Road, Jeffrey and Ann Elton, map 7A, parcel 12-S48, SE10 3602, proposed removal and reconstruction of a single-family home associated with site improvements.
Good afternoon. For the record, Sean Riley with Coastal Engineering Company. Along with me today is Rob Calderero, who's the landscape architect with Paul Hemus, Savory, and De Silva. The property for this project is located at 66 Billings Road, which is on the south side of Chatham. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
The resource areas adjacent to this property are coastal beach, land under ocean, coastal dune that comes up pretty close to Billings Road, and then the houses on the opposite side of Billings Road with a velocity zone just skirting into the front edge of the property. I'll switch over to the site plan. So on the site plan, we've got with the existing conditions, 50 feet from the coastal dune. This is the edge of the roadway, edge of the mapped coastal dune. So 50 feet from the coastal dune and 100 feet from the coastal dune. We've got an existing 3-bedroom dwelling, gravel driveway with a large paved apron out front that abuts Billings Road. The existing sewage disposal system is located under the driveway within the 50 to 100 foot buffer. The proposal before you is to raise the existing structure and replace it with a new structure. We do have to go to the zoning board of appeals. So we'll be looking for a letter from the commission, hopefully in support that this project could be conditioned for approval for them, and then to come back afterwards and close out the project. We've already been to the Board of Health and received approval for the innovative alternative system for a 4-bedroom dwelling. The new system moving over to the proposed plan. The new system would be located entirely outside of the buffer zone in this area up here, shown in green. Again, the velocity zone is down in this area here. The house itself is completely out of the flood zone. It's in a shaded X zone, which is the 500-year mapped zone. Pulling the house back, we have a net reduction in the 0 to 50 foot buffer of 70 square feet and a net reduction in the 50 to 100 foot buffer of 199 square feet for a total reduction of 269 square feet within those zones. We are reducing the driveway apron considerably. We are keeping this paved for the snow plows for the, that run up and down Billings Road. And then it's switching over to a pea-stone driveway at this point back into the property. The existing driveway is gravel, so we're reducing and necking down the driveway as it's coming in considerably, moving into the property. The house will be served with gutters, downspouts, and dry wells, which you can see on the plan. The dry well locations. There's very little lawn that we're proposing on this property. There's a small lawn panel adjacent to an small ornamental plant bed here, another small lawn panel here, and then outside of the buffer, we have small lawn areas adjacent to some landscape features. The areas that you see in dark green, I'll let Rob speak to, but essentially everything within the 0 to 50 will be all native plantings with some screening along each of the property lines. There's an existing privet hedge along the property lines that will be pulled out and replaced. And so I will jump over to Rob and let him walk you through what he's doing for the landscape along the edges and across the street.
Great. Thanks, Sean. Rob Calderaro with William Savory de Silva. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Great. So as Sean mentioned, we have reduced the hardscape within the 0 to 50 buffer, and we've actually converted to a stone paver with planted joints as opposed to the timbers laid in grade to create more of a pervious walkway. And really the strategy here was to basically maintain everything along Billings Road that is existing, aside from a few things where we have some non-native black pines mixed into what is relatively a nice community of native plant material. Our goal here is there will be some disturbance of some native plant material with the construction of the house. And the idea would be that we would take the mature material that is within that area, which Sean is pointing out right there, and then use those as substitutes or transplants for the black pines that we would be removing in that area. Any areas that are left disturbed would then be planted with American beach grass, as well as a stretch between the walkway from the north to or from the east to the west in front of the house as well. On the opposite side of the street, if you've been out to the site, you can see from a native landscape point of view, it's relatively beautiful, and there's a fair amount of bare spots that we'd like to address, and especially around the existing non-native black pines that are there as well. One, which is in very, very, I'd call it at the end of its life, right along the walkway that goes down along the southeast piece. That small one there is in decline. We'd like to remove that, as well as the 3 others indicated on this plan, and then replace those with beach plum, 3-gallon or 5-gallon, 3 of them in this area here, and then beach grass on the other side. Otherwise, it's relatively simple planting plan. We're trying to minimize our disturbances as much as possible, and would be happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you. We'll just ask, you're actually, the only thing you'll be planting new will be beach grass
and beach plum.
And beach plum. Okay. And
It's also an ornamental plant, Ed. It doesn't say what it is.
right, there's that. So if,
And he's putting in a California privet in place of the one privet, not the other.
yeah, got it.
Right, exactly. The privet along that edge is, again, if you've been out to the site, is I don't think it'll ever be the plant it wants to be. It's less than desirable to look at, and we'd like to remove what is there as an existing privet hedge and replace that with the California privet.
Well, I guess I'm just going to launch into the California privet thing. I know that it is not listed in Massachusetts as an invasive species, although it is listed as such in many other states, and it's listed as a noxious weed in 46 states. So I'm just wondering why you're proposing California privet, which, as I understand it, really actually originally was an Asian privet. I don't know why it's called California now.
Well, the reason why is because it's existing all the way up that property line. Really, we're going to basically contain or maintain that similar hedge. We'd be happy to look at alternatives if that's if
Yeah, I
that would
think,
please the
I
board.
think we have in the past asked for a different hedge, and yes, I think I can speak for most people up here that we would like to have a substitute. California privet is, it should be, and really, in reality, on Massachusetts' list of invasive species. I'm not sure why it isn't, but it is almost everywhere else.
Along that line, why aren't they removing the privet on the other side of
So
the
I'll
property?
I'll let you take over now, and
No.
I just wanted to sort of,
I figured if
Lay-
we're
lay some-
dealing with privet,
yeah.
Go for it.
Go ahead, and I'm just going to step back for a little while. Good question, and why don't you take
so
over?
the privet on the other side, why isn't that being replaced?
Well, it is an established, really nice buffer between the two properties. We have relatively tight properties in this area, and that privet hedge is actually in really good shape. As I mentioned, it creates a nice buffer between the two properties. That's the main reason why we'd be keeping it. And again, it's here, the extent of it is minimal within the 100-foot buffer. And it does continue all the way to the back of the property.
Right, but it's still a privet. Whether it's all in the 100-foot or not, the other one pretty much is, and so I get it. But it would be nice to see both dealt with if you're dealing with one. And then my other thing is the ornamental plant beds, and what are those? Are they native?
Well, the ornamental plant beds would be, we call them ornamental. They're probably, what they'll be is native ornamental. So we're talking about using calethra, inkberry, Carolina rose, things to those effect that obviously are a native plant, but have ornamental qualities to them, I guess is the best way to put it.
But I'd like to see it
And-
on
and
the
we can-
plan.
Yep, we can indicate those on the plan for sure.
I guess that's all for the mitigation part and plantings. I'm also curious why they need quite so much driveway. It's quite a bit of the property.
I guess, for Karen's question, Sean, would you like to have anything to say about that?
Yeah, actually, Rob has the design of the driveway, so I'm assuming that he's got two parallel spaces. Let me just jump back to the other plan.
Sean, you're exactly right. What we're trying to do here is provide parking on site while also providing an opportunity for people to pass. There's no street parking here whatsoever.
Right.
It's what the client has requested. And as Sean mentioned, from a hardscape point of view, within, I believe, both the 100 and the 50, we are at a reduction. Sean, is
We
that
are.
correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So essentially it'd be two parallel spots here and then two spots up in here. So room for 4 cars. So again, just to take it off of Billings Road and bring it back onto the property. Either that or they're going to be parking out on the street.
And there really is no street. There's barely enough room for 2 cars to pass in each direction, let alone have parking on the street.
Okay. So I also noticed you have a rinse station, but you also have a foot wash. Why do you need both of those? I mean, the rinse
Well, the foot
station can
wash-
be used to wash your feet.
The foot wash is really just a spigot so you can wash your feet when you come by, coming off the beach, so people are not walking off the beach and then into the front of the house with sand on their feet. The rinse station is a different use pretty much.
That's to wash the salt water off, and that's also outside of the buffer.
Right.
Right.
And your generator, is it against the house?
It's pretty close.
Because I just had one put in. So I know you have to be 5 feet from the house, and you have to be 25 feet from any property line.
So we meet all the building setbacks and to be honest, I think the size we're showing is a little big. We do have the ability to be 5 feet from the building itself and still
And it's
maintain the
50
25 feet.
It's 15 feet from the property line in this district.
Or, yeah, in this district.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, this is an R20.
Okay. I didn't realize there were for different areas.
Different zoning areas, yeah.
Interesting, okay. Somebody else can
Is that
go.
it? Okay.
For now, at least.
Bob?
I'll go.
All right.
Yeah, so as a substitute for the privet, we've had winterberry on a lot of other properties that we've reviewed. And it provides, food for wildlife. And it's very colorful in the fall, into
Sure.
the early winter. So is that something that you can live with?
It's something we can certainly present to the client. Something I could certainly live with.
Okay. And how about the east side within the 100 feet? Could you remove that area of privet and substitute it with winterberry as well?
Again, that's something we will present to our client, but it's something we certainly will.
Okay. And the lawn areas to the east of the building, there's that lawn area that's specified. Where are the other lawn areas?
There's a little piece right in here. Can you see my screen?
On the left, on the,
Yeah, just this little
Just
piece.
to the left of the porch.
The white
Just
strip
that
between
piece
the
there.
driveway, there, yeah.
Yeah, and this,
Why?
essentially this
Why
area
would you
up in.
bother?
It's just,
And that would be a high fescue Cape Cod lawn.
Cape
yeah,
Cod
it's
lawn.
just, it's so when you step off the porch, basically when you step off the front porch, you're not having to walk, you can walk out onto the driveway.
Okay, so,
Just in this
so those will, all the lawn areas, those both, the other lawn area should be labeled as well, correct?
It is. Oh, well, yeah, it's this little pocket.
Yeah. And
This lawn.
so
The other one.
there'll be, it's Cape Cod lawn, a fescue mix or what have you, and no permanent irrigation?
Correct.
Good. The black, Japanese black pines out front by the road, on the property side, on the building side of the road, those will be removed. And then I think there was some beach plum out by the walkway. Those will be transplanted into those areas. Is that the story?
The beach plum that are up by the walkway be used on the house side of the street where we have those 3 black pines.
Yes, okay.
And then we'd be replacing the black pines that we're removing on the south side of the street with new beach plums
Okay.
and beach grass.
Okay.
And also filling in, again, if you've been out to the site, there is a fair amount of bare sand areas that we'd like to augment and bring up to kind of the same
Yeah, but mine
same
doesn't look like that.
appearance as the other areas.
Right, I noticed a lot of voids in that bank. Could that be delineated on the plan as well, just to show that?
There isn't any on the back.
That you're going to be planting
Okay.
beach grass in those areas?
We've called out those areas on the plan.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, yeah,
So they're called out in these areas here.
yeah, just in
And
those
then
two,
also,
just in those 2 areas, but I think along the whole bank, I mean, there are some voids. I think that some areas along the whole bank could use some beach grass as well.
We can take a look at that and add those to the plan.
Okay, and the fence, the post and rail fence along the edge of the street, is that going to be replaced?
That's just gonna remain
Just
as is.
As is.
It's not shown on the plan.
Oh, I thought somewhere in the application it said it would be you would be removing the split rail by the road.
Yeah, so there was a miscommunication between Rob and I about that. And we submitted a revised plan to show that it was to remain. So you should have a revised plan in your packet that was submitted a day or so after the initial package was submitted.
I don't have that.
Can you tell us the date?
Yep.
Of
That date, right?
October 18th is the date of the plan, the revised plan.
No, the revision is 1/3.
Oh, I'm sorry, it's right up here.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I have a 1/3 plan that the note says eliminate existing split rail fence.
Oh,
Remove the note to eliminate. Remove the note
Remove
to
the
eliminate.
note. Oh, I see. It's a double negative.
Yeah,
Okay, I got
the
it.
note, yep, to eliminate, yep. Yeah, you got
Those always confuse me. Okay.
it. No worries.
We had 2 notes that indicated that we were going to remove the split rail fence, and those have been removed. The notes.
See, okay.
But you won't be replacing the split rail fence. Just going to leave it as is.
That's correct.
It's pretty long in the tooth, isn't it?
What's the condition of that, Rob? Do you know?
Yeah, I mean, let me.
It's
I've got a
pretty
picture
beat
of
up, and it's almost like a safety issue at the
Right.
moment.
Flotsam and jetsam, I think, is what it's
I mean,
going to be pretty soon.
I would think if you're going to upgrade the property, you'd want to upgrade that fence as well,
or remove it.
or remove it.
Client has requested that we keep it. I don't see it being a problem for an upgrade to replace it as is.
And the stairway leading down to the beach, that's going to remain as is?
That's correct.
Okay, that's all I had at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Anyone else?
No, I'm just going to note that, to think about that fence, as well as the proposed stepping stones that cross into the VE zone. And the fence is also in a VE zone. And as we know, storm intensity is only going to be increasing. So we generally don't allow structures in a VE zone. And I'm not sure how the paving, the stepping stones are to be secured, but that's a risk as well, of being dislodged and turned into.
So just to clarify for you, the VE zone is this line here. So it's actually the stepping stone.
All our paving is outside the VE
is
zone.
outside of it. But I do agree with you that the fence, we should take a look at and have a discussion with the client about the fence.
Okay, so I was looking at it, no, VE, I could have,
Yeah, this is the VE line, this dashed line that comes down.
right there, okay, so it's staying, all right.
Yep.
Still have more.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, I'm still looking for where I saw the VE line
Okay, all
further
right.
down.
Well, let me, see if I can jump over to, you saw it probably on my plan. So you could see it here on this, can you see this site plan?
Yeah,
There it is right here.
yep. Yep, okay.
Yep.
That is fine then.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it'd be great if you could think hard about removing that fence.
Yeah, we can have a tough discussion with the client.
I think the reason why they've kept it at this point is to be consistent down the road. If you look up and down the road, that split rail fence really just kind of goes in both directions.
Yeah,
up
I
and down the road.
agree, and, aesthetically, I can see why they'd want it, but, things are changing.
Yeah.
Those things are.
I think it may also serve a purpose to keep people off of from just access off the beach, because I think they terminate at the points of access. So we'll get some, so I mean, other than people just walking down the road and walking across the property to get down to the beach at any given point. Let me just jump back to you've got these access points that come down to the water. So it's really just directing people to those points. And that's where that fence is, right
Yeah.
along this edge.
Understood. You just don't want to be putting boat hazards into the water from storm activity.
Understood. We could look at something that would be a little bit more durable or less of a potential for waterborne debris.
Yeah.
You know, maybe just a short iron or something that's not going to float and,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
become a hazard.
That
We can
sounds-
have that discussion with the client.
Yeah, good. The only thing that occurs to me here, from my perspective, is that you are removing 6 admittedly invasive trees, but nevertheless, that's a fair amount of biomass that you're removing that probably provides some sort of habitat. And I'm just, and when I couple that with the fact that I don't really know how many beach plums are being added, at the very least, could we know how many beach plums are being put in to essentially replace those trees? And could we have as many as we can have, or as many as possible, in order to sort of make up for the loss of the biomass?
We could take a look at that.
Yeah, just to push it to
Yep.
whatever you can push it to.
Mm-hmm.
And also just sort of give us an idea where they're going, because at certificate of completion time, the agent would need to sort of have an idea of how to figure out whether what was promised was done.
Understood.
So that's another reason to have the number of beach plums, so they can just dutifully count them all, and they would know. All right, is anything else from anybody? All right, so you have a little bit of work to do. But I'm guessing, it looks to me like, you know, your proposal is more or less on target, except for some questions about the plantings and also the conversation about the privet. So, I mean, I think we could probably say, if you need it, a letter, we could probably issue a letter saying with conditions. We probably can, we probably can approve it. But that sort of depends on whether or not we have a good outcome with the privet, I think.
Yeah, so why don't we do this? Why don't we continue to before the hearing, the ZBA hearing, because it's going to be on the 23rd of February. So we can continue to a hearing just before that to review this so that we finalize this.
Okay,
So
yeah.
that we don't have to have several, and we can always, if we have to make any final changes, final changes, we can do that right after the ZBA hearing.
Right, that sounds efficient.
So-
All right,
Yeah. So what are we looking at? The second week of February? Is that February 8th? Do we have a hearing?
yes.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, our hearings now are the first and second Wednesdays, and, yes.
First and third Wednesdays of the month?
Second Wednesday.
First and second?
Yeah, we've
Oh.
changed things up a little bit. We still have the third Wednesday off. Our work sessions now are on the fourth Wednesdays.
Okay. So whichever you prefer, either the first or the 8th would work for us. I don't know, you might have a.
Well, if you give us the
agenda on
option,
first.
if you give us the option, we'll take the 8th.
Okay.
Make a
Will
motion,
be fine.
okay, I'll make a motion that we continue 66 Billings Road to February 8th, 2023.
Latin second.
Roll call vote, Janet.
Aye.
Karen.
Aye.
Elise.
Aye.
Bob.
Aye.
And I vote aye. See
Thank you all for your input.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We will see you. Thank you.
I'll take over, yeah, okay. If we need it, yeah.
Mr. Chairman, we take the certificate of compliance next. Dave's been sitting here for a while,
Okay, sure, yeah.
and he's got to go at 4.
Yep.
So next on the agenda, out of order, would be 125 Stage Harbor Road, Golden
Really doesn't
Orchard.
matter. Paul, it doesn't matter because I've got 2 NOIs.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Sorry.
All right. I didn't know that, David,
No,
so
I apologize.
So never mind.
never mind. But Let's go back to,
Yeah,
let's go back to 208 Cedar Street, Stephen and Cynthia Fitz, the Fitz Family Trust, map 13C, parcel 1, SE 10. No numbers issued yet, I just checked the page. Demolition of existing foundation and construction of new foundation with building, addition, and relocation of shed.
Good afternoon, David Clark, Clark Engineering on behalf of the Fitz family. Teresa Sprague is here from Blue Flags, who did the wetland delineation as well as the mitigation and restoration plan. So what the family would like to do, the house is in need of a tremendous amount of work. It's a very old house. It's in need of a full foundation. So that's the primary goal of the project, was to lift the house and put a new foundation on it, under it. In order to get access around the house, there's an existing shed that's going to be relocated. And the second half of the project is to put an addition on the back side of it, as well as a new deck and a sunken court patio, so to speak. We are upgrading the existing cesspool to Title V system. We were hoping the sewer would be available, but it's a painfully slow process of trying to get the sewer extended down this end of Cedar Street. The project went before the Zoning Board of Appeals last month and got approval. We were at the Board of Health 2 days ago and got approval for the variances for the septic system. So those two permitting processes are behind us now. All the work is within the 50 to 100 to the vegetated wetland. And all the work is basically within portions of the property where there's Cape Cod lawn. I don't believe any trees have to come out for this. There is some vegetation behind the existing garage that'll be removed in order to get the shed back there. This was designed and in accordance with your new criteria for work within the outer OR, in that we're less than the maximum percentage that your new regulations call for within the outer OR. If there's any questions on the site plan, be happy to answer them. Otherwise, Teresa can speak to the mitigation.
Actually, just, we haven't really finalized our new, those new regulations are still in.
I thought you voted on them in this.
No.
Oh, well.
But thank you anyway.
We're ahead of schedule.
No, we keep getting, we're still playing whack-a-mole with,
Okay.
on that. Okay, Teresa.
Thank you. Good afternoon again, everyone. Teresa Sprague with Blue Flags Design here on behalf of the Fitz family. I think we have a really straightforward mitigation plan. Basically, we're proposing to remove approximately 3,600 square feet of invasive vegetation, which consists of porcelain berry border privet, white poplar, and shrub honeysuckle, along with some raspberry, which is a native species, but is very aggressive. And so we're proposing just to manage that to allow for reestablishment of a native plant community. As part of the invasive species removal, we are proposing to remove 4 white poplar trees. In addition, there's 1 non-native holly that's located within the lawn area that the property owners have requested that we remove for them. All other trees are native and will remain on the site. Overall, we'll be planting back 103 shrubs and 9 native trees, including 4 serviceberry and 5 eastern red cedar trees within the mitigation planting area. We are proposing on the western property line, you'll see that there, where there's 3 red X's that show 3 invasive white poplar to be removed. We are proposing to maintain a mow strip. Of course, the invasive vegetation continues off of the Fitz's property right to the edge of the existing bordering vegetated wetland. Unfortunately, because that's off property, we cannot manage that invasive vegetation. So we are proposing to provide a mow strip in order to maintain some separation between the new native planting and the invasive planting, the invasive vegetation on the abutting property. I think that's it in a nutshell, so I am happy to answer any questions about the proposed plan, and I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. Anybody eager to go? Bob
I'll
is?
go.
Okay.
Teresa, to the east of the shed where it's going to be relocated, there's a cedar there. Is that tree that's specified there on your plan?
Correct.
So
Yes,
that's going to remain.
That's an existing tree that's going to remain, yes.
And all the vegetation around there is going to be wiped out, all the invasive, I think there's some invasives around that.
There is invasive vegetation all around that area. The trees that are to remain, there's a tulip tree and some tupelo trees that will remain within that area.
Okay. And that huge tree, what's that, a red maple?
The huge tree in the middle of the yard is a tulip tree. That really large tree that's right in the center of the lawn.
Yeah, ginormous tree, yeah.
It's really big.
With the big trunk on it?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, that's a tulip tree. I didn't realize
Yes.
that.
Yep.
Okay. And to the north end of the property, kind of like in that passageway there, where you're not planning on planting anything, there's looks like an apple tree on the end there.
Yes, there is an existing crab apple
Crab
which
apple?
will remain. Yes.
That will remain. It
Yep.
probably should be pruned, huh? It's pretty.
Exactly. Yeah, there may need to be some regenerative pruning, as David pointed out, similar to the condition of the house, the landscape, the yard has been mowed, but that's about the only thing that's been done for maintenance in the yard. So we would recommend just some general maintenance. The other trees that are located within that buffer zone would be the crab apple, some ornamental cherries. There's a silver maple, and that one large liriodendron, the tulip tree in the middle of the yard, and all of those will remain.
Okay. That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
I just have a quick question.
Okay.
This does seem to be a very straightforward plan. Is there a plan to add any paving material for the access to the driveway, to the garage? Right now, it's just lawn.
We weren't instructed as to any new surfaces, so I believe it's just going to be backfilled and hardened off, and they might put some shell down, but we weren't instructed to show paving for that area.
Okay.
This will all get dug up again when the sewer is available.
No, got the trees. Okay, I'm good, thank you.
All right, well, okay. So you're proposing a split rail fence, a very long split rail fence along both areas of mitigation on the left side and the right side. Is that the whole way from the back of the property?
We are, and I believe that was done in anticipation of the requirements in the new regulations. So but similarly to what we discussed at 299 Cranberry Lane, there is a lot of woody vegetation going back in here, so it's not like grassland or meadow directly abutting lawn area. So I feel a little bit like that single rail fence is redundant, but I think it was put on the plan to meet those regulations.
Well.
Do we require split rail fences along?
I don't know, but
I'm sure.
let's keep it.
I believe there's a requirement for us to delineate the mitigation
Yes.
area.
Yes, there's that,
Yes.
yeah. But you chose
Yeah.
split rail, and that's great. So,
We find it to be particularly effective, and frankly, more aesthetically pleasing than other options with like boulders or stumps.
I
or
agree.
anything
I think
like
in this particular site, it would look nice, yeah, sure.
that. I think it will as well. Yes.
So the the mow strip, I don't know if you heard me questioning the efficacy of mow strips earlier. And
I did, and I feel like it's the best tool we have. Obviously, we would love to go beyond the property line right up to the edge of that BBW, but those property lines, while the invasive species don't pay any attention to those lines, we have to, so.
so your experience, you do have experience showing that they're effective?
Well, I think what it's going to do is prevent, I mean, basically, it's as effective as we can get as far as allowing us to continuously maintain. So in order to keep that invasive vegetation from moving in there, really the only way to do that is to regularly maintain that area. And the most cost-effective way, the easiest way, and frankly, the least amount of disturbance is to mow it, is to run a mower straight down through there.
Right. So if we had a
Long-term.
ongoing condition to mow that strip,
Well, we'll have an ongoing condition to continuously monitor the mitigation area for invasive vegetation getting in there. The mow strip allows that, so without that, they won't be able to get in there. So as a matter of
yeah, that's true. too.
practicality, they're going to have to keep it.
It allows you to get in there and
Right.
clean it out.
Yes.
What was I going to ask? I had another question, but
Sorry.
it's gone. He'll come back. Oh, yeah, I remember. So the square footage that you calculate for mitigation, does that include the mow strip?
It does include the mow strip, the 3,629 square feet, and then there's an additional 287 square feet of lawn that we're proposing to remove. It's a small area of lawn shown in the tan color on the northwest side of the lot, but we were just trying to narrow down that open area that leads between the two properties. They did want to maintain an opening between the two properties so they have access and can go back and forth. But we were trying to just narrow that down a little bit in order to create some more vegetated area. But I could certainly calculate that mow strip area and deduct that if you'd like.
Yeah, I mean, that's my other issue with mow strips, especially one that's really, really long in this particular case, is it really, should it be counted as mitigation? It helps maintain the mitigation, but it's not mitigation per se. So I think we are on a little bit of a slippery slope by saying, oh yeah, this mowed area is mitigation.
What I'm not sure of is, and I don't have David's calculations, coverage calculations in front of me, so frankly, I don't know exactly what the increase in structure is within the 100-foot buffer zone. But I believe we're well over what's required for mitigation, even with the removal of that mow strip.
Okay, well, that would be good. If you can assure us of that, then I don't have anything to complain about.
Well, the
In that area.
coverage table says that there's 1,215 square feet of impact, all in the outer aura. So they only need 1,215 square feet of mitigation.
Right, okay, good.
So they're fine.
It's actually
But I like that.
less than that, because we have 585 existing. So just doing so
Yeah, but-
630 is all is the net increase. Oh, I'm sorry, Janet, you're right. I was looking at the wrong number. 1215 is the net increase, sorry. Yep.
But just going forward, Teresa, whenever you have these mow strips, I'll probably harping on the same thing.
Start measuring.
I will, and with just a couple of minutes, I can give you a measurement on the square footage of the mow strip.
Okay, all right,
I'm measuring it right now, hold on.
all right. I do have more questions for you, though.
Okay, then I'll pay attention to you first. count the mow strip later. Thanks.
Two things, really. You have the green WF dash number flags. Those are in the wetland on the map. I assume that those are, and I think are they delineating the wetland?
Yes, those are the
Yes.
wetland flags that Blue Flags went
Okay. So
after their field survey.
would I not expect that curve to match the curve of the 50-foot?
It would, in that, but if you took a 50-foot arc from each of those points, obviously they're going to intersect, and so That's why it doesn't follow it exactly, because you have intersecting curves or circles from each one of those flags. So at no point is that red line closer than 50 feet to any one of those points.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, I'm starting to dig in a little deeper about how wetlands are delineated, so that's
Oh.
one reason I'm asking these questions. Also, the property line ends in the back, at the end of the property, and then beyond that, there's mowed area. I assume that the neighbors are mowing that.
Yes.
Yeah,
That's, you see the neighbor's garage or shed
Yeah.
is right there on the property line.
Yeah, okay. Which is a place they shouldn't be mowing, but I guess we'll deal with that as a separate issue.
Well, these houses have been there for a
I
couple of centuries
I
at this point.
understand, I understand. That's how it works here in Chatham, but at the same time, we do what we can
Yep.
to undo the sins of the past, which is one of those things that I say as often as I can. Okay, so you have zoning, you have Board of Health, you're just waiting on us.
Yes, and apparently there's no DEP number, so
Oh,
we're stuck. So it looks like we're stuck with February.
okay.
Thank God.
So are we looking at anything, are we looking at anything from you? Not sure that we do. I think it's kind of perfect as it is, right? Anybody remember anything? I think that's good, yeah, so, yeah. Yeah, go ahead, Teresa.
I was going to say the most strip is about 500 square feet.
Okay, okay, all right.
Thank you, Teresa.
But that area, wouldn't the removal of invasives count as some mitigation in that area? Because it is heavily invaded.
Replacing invasives with grass, or with fescue? I don't know. That's something we need to probably talk about. I think maybe it counts as half mitigation, or something like that, but I don't know if it counts
I
for
like
full
that.
mitigation.
We can add that to the regulations since they're not final yet.
I think calling it 50% mitigation area would be fine, 250 square feet.
All right, we'll see if we can make that work, but, okay. All right, so we'll see you then on, we'll make a motion for you to come back on the 1st. Oh,
It's an OOC.
oh, that's right, that's right. Oh. Yeah, February 22nd, yeah.
I'll make a motion that we continue 208 Cedar Street to the work session on February 22nd, 2023.
Latin second.
Roll call vote, Bob?
Aye.
Janet?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
Elise?
Aye.
And me. I vote, and so, yes, it is approved. We're disappearing one by one here. All right, thank you. We will see you then.
Thank you.
Ready?
Just in
Next on the
time.
agenda is 173 Cross Street, Richard Smith and Allison Smith trustees, Porch Light Nominee Trust, map 14C, parcel 36A, SE 10, no number's been issued yet. Construction of a building addition.
Good afternoon, David Clark, Clark Engineering. On behalf of the applicants, Tim Smith from Minglewood Homes is also here, who's the general contractor for the project. I doubt any of you were on the commission when the last edition went on this house, but that was, what, 15 years ago? Whatever, yeah. But we had Blue Flax Design go out and re-flag the wetlands. They found a second wetland that wasn't shown on the plan 10, 15 years ago to the south, which surprised us, but we knew that wetland was there, but we thought it was further south. So you see a wetland delineation on this plan that wasn't on the previous filing. And that's the area where we're putting the addition. It basically splits the 100-foot buffer from both wetlands, the northerly ditch and the southerly Old Cranberry Bog, that impacts a lot of properties on Harding Lane to the south of us. This is the northern side of that wetland. The addition is proposed on the back side of the house with existing lawn area, and the net increase is 968 square feet. That's the addition, as well as a window well, provide light access that you saw in a previous application, and a retaining wall that's required to minimize the amount of fill on that side. I apologize. Crawford Landscape is also on the line to talk about the mitigation plan for this project. But if, I don't believe this has to go to ZBA. You got, it's a conforming lot in the R40 zoning district. So it's just, it's connected to town sewer, so there's no Board of Health issues. So this is really the only board permit we need from the town of Chatham. So if there's any questions on the site plan, I'd be happy to answer it. Otherwise,
Yeah, let's go ahead and hear from the other side.
Good afternoon, Nick Crawford, Crawford Land Management. I mean, overall, it's a pretty straightforward proposal. We're offering 1,900 square feet of invasive species management. We're evening out the lawn edge with by converting some existing lawn to naturalized area and reclaiming a little bit of area that's currently naturally vegetated. It ends up getting the lawn area actually further away from the 50-foot buffer, but results in the same the same amount of lawn in the end. The area that's getting restored is predominantly shrub honeysuckle. We're removing 5 trees, 4 of which are non-native invasive species. We're replacing them with 5 trees within the restoration area, and that's pretty much it. We're gonna do a 3-foot mow strip around the outside of it. We're well over the required mitigation for a project of an increase in that much square footage. And any other questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you, Nick. I'll just ask you the very same question that I asked. You may have heard me ask Teresa. Did you account, is the mow strip part of your mitigation?
It is. Yes, it is, but I know that we are still well over the required. I would, I think the half rule is, you know.
You like the half rule?
I mean, I could go either way. I mean, I treat the mow strip is mowed, you know, to maintain the area around the native plantings, but it's, in my opinion, it's also exactly the same condition as the area between the plantings. So, yeah, I could go either way.
Mm-hmm. But in either case, you have more than enough to, whether we were to count it as mitigation or not, you have enough mitigation.
Correct. I mean, 30, so we got, yeah, it would be, my guess is it's probably 3 by 90 and 3 by 45. Yeah, I'd say it's probably about 300 square feet, roughly. But we're still well over the required mitigation.
Right, okay. Happy accident. I guess maybe I'll just keep talking here. And I ask questions like this just as a matter of course. Was there ever a mitigation area on this property? To anyone's knowledge?
there was, and it was to the northwest of the driveway. Part of the previous application, the driveway was on the opposite side of the property, came in through an easement. And the 2 property owners got together and agreed that we should move it over to the east side where the panhandle portion of the property is. So that whole area well, not the whole area, but that area was restored, partially restored, and that's where all the mitigation was proposed, I believe, for that project. I don't think I have any of that.
So the area on your site plan shown as planting bed, maybe that,
Planting bed. I don't see it on my site plan.
I only ask this.
Oh, I see it now, yeah.
I couldn't tell
I
what the
think
plants were.
that's
in-
probably
at this
part of
time
it
year.
too, yeah.
I asked this question because I'm still trying to figure out how long mitigation lasts before it disappears from memory, let alone being there to the eye. And this is part of the reason why we undertook our revision to the regulations.
According to the assessor's card on this, the additions were put on in 2007. What time flies. So that was 1 year into your no disturb zone and mitigation requirements. So I don't know.
The last revision, you mean? or-
I don't think there was a policy on how much mitigation was going to be required at that time. I know the major revision to the bylaw, your regulations and the bylaw was 2006, is when the NDZ came in. So I
Wait a minute, are you, of course, I wasn't around then, but you're saying that the NDZ was only, the NDZ came into play around that time frame?
around 2006, yeah.
Okay, actually, I thought it pre-existed that. That's good to know. All right.
That's my memory, and it's
Okay.
fading fast now
Yes,
that I'm
it is for all of us, yeah.
incre-
Okay, but that's neither here nor there, but it's just sort of background. It informs us going forward as to how effective this trading mitigation for hardscape is. Okay, actually, I don't have anything else right now. Anybody?
I have one.
Okay.
The retaining wall, it looks like, when I was out there, that it's going into the middle of another wall that exists for the driveway. So is there land that's going to be taken, cut down on the grass side of the retaining wall? I mean,
So this new wall is going to tie into the existing wall, and that area behind it will be filled in. And that is,
but on the side that's not that little slice where the two retaining walls are meeting, where it's heading out towards the stairs, I thought that looked a little more planted, and so I was just curious how that's going to look.
I don't
mean-
know. They
Kind of seems like it wasn't needed, is sort of why I was asking. Okay,
I don't have an answer.
okay.
But I can get you an answer because we don't have a file number for this one either. And
That's right. That's a problem.
I have a question for the, is there going to be a foundation planting for the addition? Probably to, cover up some concrete.
I imagine there will be. And we can get you details on that too.
Yeah, that'd be great, yeah.
Of course, you know what we like there for foundation
Just
plants.
read the regs.
California privet.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Otherwise, I think it's, a good mitigation plan. You're going to remove some lawn, and you're going to remove a lot of invasives, so I think it's a win as far as that goes.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, no one else. So you're going to do a little, work on a couple of things. The foundation plans, what else? do
A
we
little,
ask?
and clarification what's going on adjacent to that new retaining wall.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
You also probably want to mark it that's a retaining wall on the plan. It's not marked.
Yeah, no, it's not.
I didn't realize there was a retaining wall till I was out there.
Actually,
Saw the little post
Oh,
and went,
I know.
what?
I know.
speaking of marking, Bob, you didn't ask about demarcation. You want to ask about?
Yeah, will it be demarcated, Nick? Between the lawn and the mitigation planting?
It's certainly something that we could add if that's what you would like, either, the single rail or something similar.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's a good spot.
Okay.
It's a good spot for it. Some mitigation doesn't really seem to call out for it, but this one seems to me.
Okay, you can add a note.
Thank you.
All right, so, Jen has
No,
something.
just one, David, was there a note, I'm trying to figure out where I came across this, that the driveway was going to be expanded or reconfigured in some way?
There's no requirement for that.
Okay.
If it's in the narrative.
Yeah, the
it's-
narrative
It's my
says-
poor choice of a
Okay.
template to start this
Okay, so it's not. Okay,
cutting and pasting.
got it.
Yeah. And if it isn't, I'll make a note of it and revise it if it's in there.
All right, so when would you like to reappear?
How about your working meeting in February? I don't think that what you asked for additional information needs a separate
A hearing?
hearing night.
No, if you get the stuff in, if we,
Yeah, probably, you're probably right.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'd like to get on the top of the list for that February meeting.
Yes,
I think
top of the
That's going to
list.
fill up after the.
It is,
Yes, it will. Okay, so the 22nd
22nd.
February.
You're on the list.
Make a motion that we continue 173 Cross Street to the work session on February 22nd, 2023, for an order of conditions.
Latin second.
Roll call vote, Bob.
Aye.
Janet?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
Elise?
Aye.
And I vote aye. All right.
I'm sorry, was that, you said February 22nd?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, just making sure. Thank you.
Yeah, I stepped out for Cedar. That was continued to when? 203 Cedar,
Oh,
sorry.
I,
208 Cedar.
208, I'm sorry.
Continue to the work session, February 22nd, 2023,
February 22nd.
for an order of conditions, yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Next on the agenda is the certificate of compliance request from David. I had an opportunity to go out there. I'll just read it. It's 125 Stage Harbor Road, Golden Orchard Properties LLC, map 14D, parcel 10, D11, SE10, 3453, pathway improvements, addition to dwelling and pool. Everything that David submitted, he certified that all the work was in compliance except for the mitigation plantings, which have another year to go. They're asking for a partial. I looked at all of the hardscape, the construction, the pool, the driveway improvements, pathway, everything was in accordance with the plan, and he submitted everything he needed to to receive a certification, although he did request a partial.
Thank you. David
welcome.
Clark on behalf of Golden Orchard. Yeah, unfortunately, after all the pain and suffering, which you folks witnessed, and they're absolutely thrilled with the way the house came out, they're putting the house on the market. They're finding, they've got a daughter in New York City, and they're finding the commute is killing them. So they're looking for a place closer to the city. So they want to be proactive rather than discovering there's an outstanding order 2 weeks before the closing. They understand that you can't close out the entire project because there's 1+ year of monitoring. And I believe Wilkinson has been submitting monitoring reports for the work that they have done. It's just that we got more time left on that. But the rest of the project's all done. And so we're looking for a partial.
So a partial will get you what you need.
Yes, yes. So the buyer understands that there's.
Just say the lawyers worked it out.
Yeah. So that the outstanding issues is somewhat finite, and
Yes.
there's a contract that can be.
They can live with what's left over.
Yeah,
Okay.
they can live with, yeah.
Yeah. All right.
I'll move that we approve a partial certificate of compliance for 125 Stage Harbor Road.
Latin second.
Roll call vote. Bob?
Aye.
Janet?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
Elise?
Aye.
And I vote aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Next on the agenda, Mr. Chairman, is 93 Orleans Road, William and Carmel Ferguson, map 15H, parcel 1-4, unauthorized tree and vegetation removal in conservation jurisdiction in the buffer zone. So I put an enforcement order together. They've asked for a continuance to 1/25/23. I think that's correct. I did check with Crystal a while ago. And essentially, they had a administrative review permit that was issued in 2021, so it's actually beyond the 6-month period. But nevertheless, they went out, instead of removing 6 trees or 7 trees, whatever it was, and just sort of flush cutting them on the ground, they decided to excavate the whole backyard, take out the stumps, and it's kind of just a big mud, area out there now. I don't know if you had a chance to go and look. Funny thing is, the guy right next door is working under an order
Yep.
for the same wetland,
Yeah.
and like they're like 15 feet from each other, so I don't know why they didn't pick up that,
I think they did it first.
maybe, yeah, but,
No?
Septic came.
Oh, right, the septic was,
Septic came before us, and then I drove by
Yeah.
and said, oh my gosh, there's a huge amount of trees that have been removed
Right.
next door, and asked Nikki, and she went out and said, oh yeah, they came to see me, and I said they could remove a few trees, she specified which, and the whole place was flattened. It's terrible.
So this, we've heard this once, and Mr. Norcross and the owner appeared for us, and I thought the next action would be for them to bring a restoration plan to us.
It was.
And did you hear
I
anything?
did, no, as you guys know, I mean, I just.
Yeah, you just showed up, I
tapped on the
know.
shoulder Wednesday so, but I did get a chance to do at least 3 or 4 things before today, and that was one of them. I don't know the answer
Okay.
to the question.
And they're not here today.
No. Question I have for you, though, is do you want, because they're working on the house itself, is it all right for interior work inside to go on, which really isn't an alteration of the ground at all? Because these orders basically say stop all work or specify that something can continue while the enforcement order is in effect.
Didn't they add a foundation? They put an addition on?
Yeah, they did. And so
And last time, Nikki, just like, as a sidebar, said something about the foundation might be within our jurisdiction, but then nothing else was said about that.
Yeah, it's close. It could be within your jurisdiction. They've actually framed it in now, and there's
I know.
there's plywood on it. When I saw the pictures, it was an open foundation. But we got to take a tape, I guess I can go out and take a tape measure, and if that portion does fall within the 100-foot buffer, then I guess the answer to my question would be stop everything until they submit their plan. It's up, I don't know who's seen it, who hasn't seen it. I mean, if the foundation's in there, it's gonna be an after-the-fact filing, right? So, I don't know if you're gonna make them take the foundation out.
No.
Right.
Probably make
No.
them do some significant rest.
Yeah, basically, make it up with more mitigation maybe than they needed to if they had done it the way it should have been done to begin with, so.
Well, if you could look that over, Bob, just let me know. I'll send it out, like, in the next day or so. It's gonna
Because
go-
you have signatures on file
Yes,
to
we do,
use.
yeah. So we're all set to go. It'll go to the owners of the property who are in Darien, Connecticut. I'm not sure they're aware of what's going on.
Oh,
They were on the meeting last time.
they were, yeah.
Oh, they were.
He was, I thought he said he was in Pennsylvania, though, or something. Or maybe I'm thinking of different,
I don't remember, but he was here virtually, right? He was.
yeah, it was virtual.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, he was there, and he said the normal things about how he didn't know, et cetera. But, since you're here, Paul, the AR that we're looking at was from
Right.
December 2021.
Right, November, actually, I think it was, but yeah.
Well, it says approval date,
It might be December, yeah.
yeah, it says December. And then down at the bottom of, there's a note
Mhm.
from April 2022 that says 18 stumps, called owner, will take and send pictures. I'm assuming that was Nikki's
I guess.
note. And so that was April,
Yeah.
and here we are in January.
Yeah.
I don't understand what's been going on in the meantime.
But also, Bob, I think more than 18 were taken out because the back wasn't barren
Oh, well, it was
when I
clearly
went.
scoured, and
I mean,
we don't know.
initially, when I saw it and was concerned, it looked like a lot of trees had been taken out, but there were still woods to the back. And now you can see a shed, so they've, I think, done more.
We're hampered a little bit in that we don't know what communications have occurred between Nikki and them.
I can, Crystal is in communication with Nikki. I can see if I can get something back from,
Yeah, because
I don't know what her status is yet at this.
that would sort of influence me in terms of
Okay.
what we do in terms of stopping work. Has the owner been acting in good faith based on the communications between them and Nikki or not?
I mean, the way they do the administrative permits a little differently than I did them. They actually issue that piece of paper now, and the conditions are listed there.
Yeah,
And I thought it was pretty straightforward. You can remove 6 pitch pines and 1 maple, and that's what I think it said, something.
It does say that.
Yeah. I may have the numbers mixed up, but it didn't, it was pretty clear that when someone comes in for an AR, they cut the tree down. They don't grub out the stump and then remove all there was a lot of vegetation back there. It's all gone.
Right.
yeah.
There's 2 old
They
sheds
cleared.
out there now.
Yep.
Suburbia.
So now it's suburbia. Now it looks like,
Right.
yep,
I would, so
I'll find
Mr.
it.
Norcross, and I guess Crystal's been in contact with Riley and Norcross
This morning, yeah.
this morning, and there was, the date that Attorney Riley wanted was the 25th
Right,
to appear before us again.
yeah, that's correct.
No, that's to submit the restoration plan.
Submit the restoration, well, he says he wants it continued to the 20th.
That's all we know.
It
is-
doesn't get him a lot of time to get the restoration plan in, but certainly with what you just described, it might,
I thought we were going to be seeing one today.
no, no, they just, yeah, it's the 25th. That's what she said.
Yes, it is. Yeah, we are booked to the gills on the 25th.
Well, if you want a restoration specialist and you're only giving them,
Well, he should have been working on a restoration specialist for a while now.
is there enough time though between now and the 25th to reasonably expect it'll?
No, not if they're starting now. Not if they're
So do
starting
we
now.
want to put it out further?
Yeah, with the expectation
Okay.
that
All
we
right.
need to see plan.
I had it before that time, okay. So we'll put a
And-
date in
and
there.
to have that specialist here so that we can
Okay,
talk to them about the plan.
all right.
And I don't care if the plan is not firmly done, but we need to have some idea
All right,
of what they're thinking. And part of coming up with that plan is trying to figure out how you know what was removed, what vegetation was there.
there are some pretty good photos that I saw in the file that kind of,
Well, I also put a Google Earth shot. I
Oh.
think I put it in our Dropbox, and it was a very robust canopy of trees.
Yeah, the canopy, but you know, what's underneath the canopy?
Right.
You know, and we don't really know that unless there are on-the-ground pictures from
there
somebody.
were, but yeah.
Sometimes we've asked the owner,
Mhm.
because every owner has pictures of their property, and to provide us with those pictures, and, well, actually to provide those to the restoration person.
Did they recently buy it? I wonder if Zillow has property
Oh, that's true. It
photos,
could
if
be,
it's a listing.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Things like that. But anyway, so
Well, in any event, you're gonna want that revegetated
heavily.
heavily, so, as you said, a robust,
I don't know if we need to stop work. Any opinions on
What do
that?
they do, what work? Where do they?
well, the basically, it looks like they're working on the inside, framing things up, you know, it's interior work, but that, you know, Karen's right, the foundation might actually be within the,
So do we need to specify in the enforcement order to have it surveyed to make sure that the
sure.
foundation is outside of jurisdiction or not?
Yeah, we can do that. Yeah. I mean, when I looked at it yesterday, it was fairly close, but I didn't have a tape with me and I was on the run, so.
Yeah, the restoration specialists can't do their job without having an up-to-date
They need a survey.
delineation.
Yeah, they need a
Yeah.
site plan.
So that's got to be part of it,
Okay.
especially since we suspect.
Otherwise, we'll get one of those hand-drawn, restoration plans.
You do not want a notice, though, I take it. You guys have been dealing with these with restoration plans, so the notice can't get appealed, correct? Is that what you've been doing?
The notice of violation?
No, if someone violates, the old school
Right,
was.
we're not asking them to do an NOI. We
Right.
have a new form called restoration plan, which is designed just to resolve violations. I'll send you a copy.
Oh, great, okay.
It's very much like an order of conditions, but it references violations instead of NOIs,
Cool.
not appealable.
You guys have been busy.
Too many violations.
Yeah, we had a lot of
Yeah,
violations.
yeah.
So is there erosion control?
No, there's runoff coming from the house and the gutters and whatever. It's just running right down through the soil and down toward the wetland. I didn't see any past the siltation barrier that's along the wetland edge,
But I
but
mean, there is a barrier.
there's a barrier down at the edge of this, it's either a BVW or it's isolated, I'm not really
Because
sure.
that's what we had asked for last time they were here.
They did do that, but there is runoff coming off the house and just kind of heading down. It's a pretty good slope, so it's heading down toward the wetland. I noticed that yesterday.
So you asked them to put more
I did.
barrier in?
Yeah, address the siltation issue, put more siltation measures in to address the runoff coming from the house.
All right,
Right.
so I guess, since we just got this, even though there's not a lot here, I would suggest send comments to
Yep,
you by tomorrow,
okay,
if anybody has any, adding stipulations here, clarifying stipulations, and then you can issue it.
all right. Just a query, just so before we wrap it up. Have you guys been always issuing to the property owner or sometimes to the actual contractor?
For enforcement,
Yeah.
for enforcement? Property owner, right?
Okay,
Property owner.
all right. That's it for,
Okay, any other business
I think so.
from anybody? All right.
Who's going to assign?
Oh, yeah. We have a metric ton of OCs in 2 weeks. Some of them have already been grabbed before the holidays. Janet took a couple.
I did 3.
You did 3.
Which, right, so
I
I
sent
have
them to
you,
all of you.
so Main Street, Woodcarver Knoll, and what's the third one? Do you remember?
Might be Smith.
Smith? Okay.
I'll email you
Okay.
when I get home. And I can look. It's been since before Christmas.
Yeah, and-
I think that is right, though. did
I think it's
look at it.
Smith.
Yeah, okay. So, that leaves, you want to know what that leaves?
Huh.
maybe.
3 Oyster Drive, to which I'm going to be saying, as I go through all of these, what's that?
Yeah, it's been, yeah.
7 Easy Street, 86 Meadowview Road, and then the 3 from today, 127 Stage Harbor, 25 Patriot, and 27 Tillapi.
If you, once you get, if you're going to get anything, could you just send out what's available?
Yeah, let me send this.
And-
I'll send this whole list.
And
Of
then we'll just
shows.
reply to all, just say which ones we're grabbing, if we're
Yep.
grabbing any.
Oh. My husband just texted me and said, just so you know, it's snowing.
Oh.
They said it might. What?
I have to go to Dennis.
Oh,
Fun.
Are we going to continue this to a 93 Orleans Road to a date in the future?
Yeah, you should do a date certain.
Yeah,
we did it for the February,
we talked about putting it into February because we can't really,
put it on
we don't have
the
time
list
for it
for-
on the,
February 1st?
February 8th.
yeah,
But
February 8th.
Should we deal with it sooner?
I don't know, because they're probably not going to have a restoration specialist
Yeah.
in the harness by then anyway, or at least, maybe
Let's
hopefully they'll
not.
have a contract with somebody.
Should I make a motion?
Make a motion for that.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we continue 93 Orleans Road to February 8th, 2023.
Latin second.
Roll call vote, Bob,
Aye.
Janet,
Aye.
Karen,
Aye.
Elise.
Aye.
And I vote aye. And then when we get this enforcement order to them, that might spur things to a faster pace. At some point, then, we can talk about fines.
Sure, okay. All right, there's always an issue with fines in terms of when there's a procedure for it and there's time.
I get it, but we'll just see how it goes here.
So are we signing this one? This enforcement order? Are we-
No.
He's got, we pre-signed enforcement order forms. You don't have to lift a finger. So that is, anything else? Nope, okay. One more motion to go, and
Motion to adjourn?
Latin second.
roll call vote, Bob,
Aye.
Janet,
Aye.
Aaron, Elise.
Aye.
I will vote aye. All right, thank you all. That's